and successors according to law. So help me God.
It's happened before, but it is nonetheless still rather extraordinary that somebody who was only elected or officially sworn in as an MP less than 24 hours ago, in 3 weeks' time, is going to be running the country.
Yes, I think it is rather extraordinary. I think the issue isn't whether someone like that should automatically have to hold a general election. If Andy Burnham wants to introduce major changes to our constitution, he's talked about overhauling the House of Lords. He's also talked about overhauling our electoral system, bringing in some form of PR. I think if he wants to do any of those things, he needs a mandate from the public to do them. To try and do them without calling an election, I think, would be a constitutional outrage.
I've got an interesting tweet. There's always a tweet, Julia.
Yep.
If I can just read this out to you from Andy Burnham 3 years ago. We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. Well, well, well. That was Andy Burnham actually 4 years ago in 2022. So we're saying stick by your word, be consistent, Andy, and when you're Prime Minister, call a general election.
So the battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people in Makerfield have voted for this guy. Yeah. So he's played a pretty integral role in undermining Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband aren't really speaking. He's going to want a big reward. But, you know, he is, you know, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets.
Lou Hay, I mean, the reality is, look, she served her time. You know, she was cast out of government. The reality is, as you said, she has been central to his campaign. She was central to his campaign in Makerfield. More broadly, she's been central to his campaign to enter Downing Street. He owes her, and she will definitely get a role. I'm not.
What do you say to the people that have texted me in their droves this morning? This is a really corny sentence, but it's true. That lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is she's going to get a job. So the answer is yes, they can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. What is it? Thursday, the 9th of July. You're welcome to Talk Breakfast, home, of course, Common Sense, and the place where along got Brits. We want your views on the day's news. Back today, just so you're aware, it wasn't a skive. Yesterday I did what I had to do, which was to appear at my son's sports day, which turned out to be not embarrassing. I was sort of mid-division. The saviour of the Kyle family is looking at me through the glass. Number 2, as I call her, Alice. She entered the mum's race as a 23-year-old. Won by about 60 lengths and had time to stop halfway and deal with a skirt, which was riding up. But she was brilliant and she won, and it created much, much joy. What a day not to have been here. But anyway, listen, loads to talk about today. Simon Danshuk, former Labour MP and Reform defector, with me this morning. Listen, wherever you're waking up this morning, at work, on your way to work, on your way back from the night shift, we obviously, as always, want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. The A-team are back. Tommy is here in shorts. Mark is here. Not in shorts. Nahar is here. Still hasn't been asked to get married. And Christian, the world's greatest executive producer, is sat in the chair. 0344 499 1000 for your phones. Also, get that voice note in as soon as you can. And 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Listen, Nigel Farage, I didn't miss this yesterday. I knew there would be a time where this would build up. Yesterday, as he took to the streets of Clacton, having made that speech on Tuesday night, having attacked many people within the establishment who are seeking, he says, to undermine him. He says he's done nothing wrong. The electorate, he said, in Clacton didn't deserve to wait 3 or 4 months until the Standards Committee deemed it necessary or right to judge him. He decided to resign as an MP, hold an election in Clacton. And the main parties, almost as one pincered. I don't know whether he expected this, but the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats, whatever they are, they all decided to not stand a candidate. Now, some of the press are saying, look, this is a complete and utter mess for Farage. He's been outmanoeuvred. I would just give you a couple of comments on this. He's arguing that the contest is a referendum on whether voters or the political establishment should decide his future. I want to talk about something else. The main parties who are not running, they say we're not getting involved in Farage's farce, right? He's saying, but you're, in essence, you're showing contempt for the electorate by not turning up. I read a quote from, I think it was somebody on the Labour side yesterday who said, who the hell does Nigel Farage think he is, that he can just go to Clacton-on-Sea, increase his majority because there'll only be Count Binface standing against him, and think that that's a mandate? I would respectfully like to make this suggestion. On the 20th of July, because the Labour nominations to replace Keir Starmer closed today, and nobody is showing their head above the parapet to take on Burnham, on the 20th of July, my friends, in a week and 5 days, Andy Burnham will be made the new Prime Minister of this country, decided for by 21,000 people in Makerfield. So that's a very relevant point, isn't it? What's the difference between that and Nigel Farage saying to the people that he represents, am I right for this or am I wrong for this? We'd love your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. As I said, last night Defence Minister Al Khan's ruled himself out of the Labour leadership race, effectively clearing the way for Andy Burnham, who literally 20 days ago wasn't even an MP, and he's going to waltz up Downing Street with... Has he got a mandate? I don't know. I mean, I've said it consistently. I don't think you should be able to defect whilst you're an MP without an election. I don't think you should be able to become the Prime Minister without going to the electorate and getting a mandate. Your thoughts on that? 0344 499 1000. Just to give you some idea of how petty politics is. It came to us this morning that some MPs are asking the Speaker, if Count Binface beats Nigel Farage, can he wear his spacesuit and a bin head in Parliament? I mean, he wouldn't look out of place with a bunch, most of that lot, would he, to be honest? We'd love your thoughts on all this. And here's a surprise. Here's a surprise. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, you will understand naturally the outrage that was caused when that vile grooming gang rapist was released the other day after serving just 14 years of a concurrent 41-year sentence. He's now back in the community where he committed his crimes. Young girls who were raped, 50 times he raped young girls, might be there. No, apparently we can't do anything about deporting him. Oh, surprise, surprise. Shabana Mahmood is set to change the law so the Pakistani-born ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, Habir Ahmed, can be deported. Yeah, because we could change the law, couldn't we, Labour, to have a drink till 5 a.m. the other morning, but it took stations like this to say, why are you allowing this disgusting human being, OK, to walk the streets of the United Kingdom? Send him home. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. And just a bit of fun, because it's bloody serious today. Front page of The Sun. I mean, I do feel sorry for this woman. My £12 million lotto win was binned. She could have won 12 million quid, this poor lady, and the shopkeeper binned the ticket, which means she's not... So it got Christian, who likes to be creative. He said, why don't we ask them what they've lost? What have you lost? I went a testicle to cancer. I don't mean to down you all. I'm just being honest. That's what they call me here, Womble. So, Womble, see what I did there? If you've got... What have you lost that meant something to you? And don't phone me up with the, I lost the love of my life to my best friend. Isn't the Jeremy... Well, it is the Jeremy Kyle, should be, you know what I mean? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's get to it. On a Thursday morning, Simon Danshuk, former Labour MP and Reform defector. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Thank you, my friend. Farage says that Binface by-election is deadly serious and that Labour and the Liberal Democrats and the Tory party are showing contempt for the electorate. Your thoughts?
I think Nigel Farage has called it right. There's a sustained attack by the establishment on Farage and on reform. There's no doubt about that. I've been in politics 40 years. I've never seen anything quite like it. You look at today's papers, you've got Richard Tice being attacked, you've got over his finances, you've got Robert Jenrick on the front of one paper being attacked over his finances. We've seen Farage attacked over his finances. circumstances. This isn't coincidence. This is a sustained attack on Reform and on Farage. And what he's saying, and he's calling it out, he's saying, listen, I want to be put before the public again to show that I have the support. The country believes that we need radical change in this country. So he's calling out the mainstream parties, and I think he's right to do so.
The stuff that you're talking about, and we have to be very careful out of respect for the process, really. I mean, there is information on some people involved in Reform, and there is no way on God's green earth, and I can tell you this for a fact, peeps, that anybody would be able to get hold of that unless somebody had done something illegal. And of course the headlines, and I get the whole Farage 5 million thing, I completely get it. Personally, and I know the man, I wish he'd come out 8 weeks ago and gone, do you know what, I was given that. I've got security issues I will have, because I know how difficult it's been, you know how difficult it's been. Death threats, bomb threats, everything, right? Yeah. But there is no doubt in my mind, whether people think I'm being unfair or biased or whatever, that there is a systematic attack, not legally, I think, in all cases being done properly, and he's decided to call it out. The problem is, the main parties then said, we're not standing. Do you think he saw that coming?
Oh, I think he will have gameplayed all of what could have happened. It's David Davis, for
2008.
Yeah, Conservative MP. He did something similar over a point of principle, and the same happened there. Nobody stood against him. So I'm sure Nigel Farage and the people around him will have suspected that this could have happened. But it puts the Conservatives, Labour, Liberal Democrats, it makes them have to say to the public, why aren't you, they're challenged, why aren't you fighting Farage? Because they can't have it both ways. They can't say, listen, you know, Farage isn't fit to be involved in British politics, and then at the same time say, oh, well, we're not going to stand against it.
And the interesting thing, the other reason that Nigel did what he did was because, quite simply, this committee, and we need to call this out, there are no representatives of Reform, because apparently they've only got 5 MPs, despite the fact they led every opinion poll for months and months, right? So you've got a committee of 5 people, I think, in the Commons. You'd probably know more than me. Probably a couple of Labour, a couple of Tories, and somebody from the Liberal Democrats. Now, I suspect that people in Reform see that as a potential stitch-up. They're now saying they won't report till October or maybe November. So there's this sort of month of 3 or 4 months where this is just going to continue. So he's found a way. Listen, couple of clips for you. Yesterday he was in Clacton, already in the seat, already doing his best to drum up support. Nigel spoke to Sky News. Have a listen.
Number one, I have nothing to apologise for at all. I haven't broken the law in any way at all, and I'm firmly of the belief, backed up by strong legal opinion, that I have not broken Parliament's rules either. However, as a result of constantly being referred and complained about, it now would appear from the media pylon and from the political party pylon that I'm guilty of virtually everything. I'm being painted out to the people in this constituency, frankly, as being a crook. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think Sky News or anybody else should be my judge. I think the voters here in Clacton should have that opportunity. And as for the other parties, you know, the Conservatives got over 30,000 votes here in 2019. They don't want to stand. They know, well, you know why? Because they'd lose and lose badly.
That was Nigel Farage. The 2 main leaders responded. First of all, Kemi Badenoch responding to Nigel's speech yesterday.
Nigel Farage is having a hissy fit because the first time he's actually having to deal with some real scrutiny. What he needs to do is be honest about where his fishy £5 million came from, rather than calling a fake by-election to run away from a standards investigation. We will be standing a candidate in the real by-election because no one is above Parliament. Parliament is bigger than all of us. We all have to follow the same rules. We all have to register our interests. What this by-election is a gimmick. This is him wanting to make everything about himself rather than his offer to the country at a time when we have a defence crisis, a retiring Prime Minister, so much change and turbulence. Conservative Party is the only party that's actually focused on the issues that matter to people.
Let's balance it. 6:15. This is what the outgoing Prime Minister Keir Starmer said about Nigel Farage.
This is a desperate stunt from Nigel Farage, and it's obvious why he's doing it. He is up to his neck in sleaze. Politics should be about improving the lives of millions of people, not about personal gain, not about hiding dodgy donations. And I think the public will see this for exactly what it is.
I have to be really... The thing is, from him, I can listen to Bennett, from him, Sleaze, the man that appointed the best friend of the most notorious paedophile in British political history, the man who took freebies left, right and centre from Lord Ali. Let me see what do you make of this? Are you, whether you're pro or anti-reform, I want to know what you think. Do you think Nigel Farage has made a huge decision that will work in his favour? Has he made a political own goal? Morning, Lee.
Morning, Jezza. Lee from Scarborough in his van, off to work, veteran. I've got to say, mate, this lot, hypocrites. Labour Party calling Nigel, Conservatives calling Nigel, Lib Dems calling Nigel, the Green Party calling Nigel. All the lot of them, mate, have been caught with their hands in their till. And Nigel hasn't done anything wrong. Let's just remember this. £5 million gifted to him before he was even an MP. And look at the Ferrari and the outroar. Oh, we're not standing. Oh, we're not putting a thing up. Starmer, Sleaze, he's up to his eyeballs in Sleaze. Well, Jeremy, my backside, they're up to their eyeballs in Sleaze. I'm absolutely bloody fuming, Jeremy. Anyway, great show, pal.
I love the way they always finish. I'm bloody fuming, Jeremy, but great show, 6:15. So, listen, I'm going to balance it. There will be people. Lee is an example, I guess, of millions of people who will vote reform who refuse to accept. And it's a bit Trump-esque, isn't it? You can be accused of everything. Certainly in America, Trump was accused of all sorts of things, legally, morally, ethically, politically, and 72 million Americans voted for him. I thought when this happened, it will be very interesting to see how the main political parties respond, because presumably they have to be really careful not to demean and deride the millions of people who we know are going to vote reform and who will get behind Nigel Farage. But that's not me in any way. If there is an issue that I or you don't know about, then of course he has to face the reality of that decision. And there are plenty of people who think, oh, this is a last-minute thing. I think this was thought through. I don't think I've known him a long time. I don't think I've seen him as angry as I did on Tuesday.
Rightly angry in terms of the media intrusion that he and his family have faced. I mean, you know, Kemi was saying that Farage is finally facing scrutiny. I don't know a politician who's been scrutinised more than Nigel Farage. He's been in politics a lot longer than Kemi Badenoch. He's been scrutinised beyond belief. I mean, that's the reality. Compare the scrutiny that Nigel Farage faces to the lack of scrutiny of Andy Burnham. I mean, nobody's scrutinised Andy Burnham. He's not faced questions. He's going to be our Prime Minister in a couple of weeks. There's been no scrutiny.
You know what, Simon, I think that's a really relevant point, and I want to make the point, and I'll make it all day. I am not sitting here blindly supporting Nigel Farage. I'm acknowledging that there's obviously an issue. He's made a decision, and he's made a decision his way. Can I just, because it's playing on the YouTube channel right now, when you say about press intrusion, I've been there, right?
Me and you both.
Yeah, and I know what it's like. Sky News said, and I quote, "We did not go to his house." The footage was released. They did. They pestered his daughter. Now, I've had that. I've had that with my kids and my ex-wife and all those sorts of things. So there is a moral issue there, and he'll have known that's been part of it. But this seems to me to be a systematic, in my opinion, attack. Now, you either accept that because you're in the game, or it goes a little bit beyond. Love to know your thoughts this morning. 0344 499 1000. Serena, I couldn't agree more with Kemi and Starmer. He's up to his neck in it. She's saying, Serena, thank you, Sarah Bird. I lost my brother, Robin, back in 2023. He was always there for me. It broke my heart. Oh, sorry, I was started with a lottery ticket, Sarah, but bless your heart. Roger in Wales. Farage is doing what he has always done. He is giving the people a voice. That's interesting. Jez, morning. Over my lifetime, I've lost the country I loved and our national identities, says Cliff in Berkshire. Oh, God, this is because a woman on the front of the Sun lost a £12 million lottery ticket. I lost a testicle. She talked about losing her brother. Oh, God. Morning, JK. I lost my sanity with these Labour idiots. Sean in Bradwell. Where is Bradwell? Don't start. George, morning. My only complaint complaint about, Nigel Farage calling a by-election is the 250 grand it's going to cost us Brits. George in Leicester, I don't know if you know this, but he offered to pay through reform, and they said, no, you can't do that.
And that's a really good example of where the scrutiny on Farage is much more fierce than it is on Burnham. Burnham, by standing in Makerfield, has caused the by-election for the Greater Manchester Mayor and in Makerfield, costing millions. There hasn't been a single headline about the fact that Burnham has cost millions in by-elections.
There's definitely a Burnham media bounce. I watched the Question Time thing before it was definitely the BBC have laid it all out for him. I can only categorically say a wise old man said to me 2 years ago that Keir Starmer would last 2 years, and we laughed at that person. I would respectfully say, I'd stick my neck on the line, it might all be lovely for 3 months. By Christmas, Andy Burnham, a proper socialist who's got one answer, and that is to raise taxes, will be on his backside like Starmer, because the books don't balance, and you cannot offer people or tell people you're going to give them stuff that you haven't got. Chris, I see Rupert Lowe has shown his true colours by backing the establishment instead of reform. Yeah, there you go. Graham Pack. If Nigel Farage loses the by-election, is his political career in the dustbin? Graham from Bushy, I think he'll just walk away if he loses that election.
I don't think he'll lose it.
I think there's more chance of my mother winning, and she's dead.
He's on to win it, and he'll show that the public are on his side rather than the establishment side.
Yet again, this country is proving itself to be a laughingstock for allowing Count Binface, says Trev, to challenge Farage. Anyone who dresses up in an absurd costume and claims they can make the country a better place should never be taken seriously. Maybe this guy is really Zach Polanski, the boob whisperer in disguise. Haven't heard much from Dave, have we, recently? Dave Polanski?
No, he's keeping a real profile. He has had some scrutiny. He's been found wanting. I mean, compare his lack of political ability to Farage. There's no comparison.
Sean's in Gloucester. Morning, gang. The Blob are not only misguided, they're running scared, but they're showing their desperation. It will bite them on the backside. 21 minutes past 6. We're live across the UK. Perry, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. This thing all about Nigel Farage, you know, obviously the Uni Party have all got together and they've decided they're not going to stand. The reason they're not going to stand is because they know they're not going to win. And also, why do they think they're in the right? Because not everyone in Clacton votes for Nigel Farage. Think of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that don't like Nigel or won't vote reform, right? So the Uni Party would rather just stand to one side and try to humiliate Nigel, you know, when his only contestant is Binface. They'd rather see him humiliated rather than fight for that constituency. What about the thousands and thousands of people that don't vote for Nigel? They're just like nobody. They're just like, oh, well, you know, brush to one side, they don't care. People in Clacton that don't vote Nigel or reform should look at that and think, why aren't they standing for us? Why are they not standing for the people that don't like Nigel Farage?
And I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which should happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25, Thursday morning, July 9th. I'm with Simon Danshuk, former Labour MP and a Reform defector. We're looking through the papers, and of course the Farage story is front and centre. And we were saying, he says yesterday that the by-election is deadly serious. It turns out it looks like there'll only be one candidate, Count Binface, whoever the hell that is, because the main unit parties have also, Liberal Democrats, Labour, Conservative, the Greens, we're not doing it. Now, they're saying it's a farce. He's saying, if you're going to attack me in the mainstream media and the blob, let's see what the people think, because if the people of Clacton think I'm a lying crook, then I'm gone, you've got what you wanted. But if they don't, perhaps it's on you. Fascinating. He says that they are showing contempt for the electorate. The point we're making on the show this morning is, I understand there are activists everywhere, but the fact of the matter is, and you just say what you said during the break, because I'm not into conspiracy, but it is really interesting about Burnham and timing, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that Nigel is right to call this, because he's beginning to get his message across. I think that's really important. So he can dominate the headlines, he can get his message across. And one of the problems that's occurring here is the uniparty. Perry made this point when he rang in. You know, you've got Badenoch and Starmer and Ed Davey for the Liberal Democrats all coalescing in the same space. That's not what the public want. And you've got Badenoch agreeing with Starmer on a variety of issues, including this one. And it's effective that the mainstream parties are against the public, against Farage, and I think it's showing them wanting. I think they're making a fatal mistake.
And I agree with you. And I'm not into conspiracy, but is it not very interesting that this pile-on to Nigel and Reform has taken any exposure, any scrutiny off our incoming Prime Minister, who, I will repeat, from 6 o'clock, is going to walk into 10 Downing Street in about 10 days, and only 21,000 people voted for him in Makerfield. So when all those uniparty politicians go, what, so he thinks if he goes to Clacton and 25,000 people vote for him, you think that's a mandate? It's been a bloody mandate for the next Prime Minister, hasn't it? Now, if you're a regular to this show, you'll know that Angry Rob gets angry. Christian's done a warning for your ears. He's never known him so angry. Morning, Rob.
Morning, Jez. Morning, Mr. Danchuk. Rob, on my way to work, listening about Burnham and his mandate, which he ain't got, never had, never will, because he's just a shoe-in. We're going to get another Marxist in the number 10 seat, ain't we? We're going to get somebody that's got to find 120-odd billion, and where's he going to find that from? Oh, let me guess. It won't be from all his set-at-home scratch card enthusiast Labour voters, will it? So I can pay more to people who don't want to do anything to help this country. Not one of them in that parliament takes this country seriously anymore. It's a bloody game. Look at the by-election with Farage. They're not standing anybody in there. They say that it's all a show for Farage. Well, they're making it even worse by not even giving their people that they represent voice. They're just treating everybody with utter contempt. They're not taking the process seriously. I've had enough. All of them. They should be on a gallows. I tell you what, I'm a builder. I'd volunteer to build a bloody thing to swing them all off.
Brilliant. Well, he is quite angry this morning, but you understand the anger, man. There's a man, an alarm clock Brit, going to work every single morning. And Simon, people will not take the... whatever your persuasion, if you have a different view to the establishment, and that view has resonated with millions... and the blob, or whatever institution it is out to destroy you, there will be kickback.
And Rob makes a really good point there. If you, supposing you're a Labour supporter, or a Green supporter, or a Liberal Democrat supporter, or a Tory supporter in Clacton, what are those parties saying to their supporters in that constituency? They're saying, we disregard you.
I'm waiting for them to tell them all to vote for Count Binface. Here's an interesting one. Cliff's just made this point. Nobody said this. Kemi said that her party will stand in the real by-election, not this one. Does that imply that the committee has already made its mind up about Nigel Farage? There you go. Not a Reform person anywhere near that committee. Mike's in Ebervale. That's in Wales, isn't it? Ebbw Vale. I did that very well, isn't it? Morning, Jez. I don't care if Nigel Farage has £10 trillion given him and he's got 50,000 houses. He and Reform are the only party in my mind that will put the British value and country back to where it belongs. Jeremy, the arrogance of Kemi, assuming that Farage will be found guilty and will be suspended for 10 days, so forcing a by-election is unbelievably breathtaking. Nicola's in Norfolk, Simon. Kemi has totally gone down in my estimation with the childish language about hissy fits, and any chance she and a party had of regaining my vote has evaporated. I knew the establishment would throw everything they could at Reform to stop them, but this onslaught is off the scale.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And an important point about the parliamentary investigations process, and I've studied this for a couple of years, it's seriously flawed. There's no doubt about it. Reform has no representation on it, as you make clear, but it's down to one individual who carries out the investigation. Seriously flawed. And I say that in terms of being objective. It was wrong in terms... You had Harriet Harman chairing the committee against Boris Johnson. That was seriously flawed. And from then on inwards, MPs of all colours who've been treated appallingly by the parliamentary investigations process. It's a very complicated picture, but it's not been objective, it's not been fair.
Well, I think therein lies one of the reasons why Nigel has done what he's done, because he knows that this committee that have said it will be 4 or 5 or 6 months and Parliament will continue are going to find him guilty anyway, because they all hate the fact that he's got real traction across the country. So he's saying, right, so let's take a little section of society, my constituency. If they think I'm a crook or a no good piece of whatever, then they'll vote me out and I'll walk away and I'll put my... But you know what? That guy nailed it. I think so many people, right? So many people in this country, and I've said this for so long, I don't give a toss, personally, if my politicians are flawed. In fact, one of my biggest criticisms of politicians in the last few years has been this pretense that they're whiter than white or perfect or what. I don't care if you've been divorced, you once smoked a joint, you've done... I don't care. I want my country to not be an international embarrassment. I want immigration sorted. I want us to start drilling because it's a natural resource so that energy prices. I want businesses to flourish. I want police to actually deal with criminals. I want prisons built. I don't know, there's so much I want done. And if they believe, and I'm being completely serious, if they believe that the Nigel Farage Reform desire for change amongst millions of Brits is going to go away, they're badly mistaken.
Absolutely.
I really believe it. I really do.
I completely agree with you. And, you know, this isn't the early 2000s where you can just attack politicians like Farage through the media and through Parliament, and it will have the sort of effect that they expect. Those days are gone. With social media, with more diverse media that we've got nowadays, the situation's very different, and I think that's significant.
Yeah.
The game that these guys are playing, the mainstream parties are playing, I don't think is going to work.
6:32, what do you think? Britain 0344 499 1000. Nick's in London. So Al Carnes, the ex-Armed Forces Minister, yesterday ruling himself out of the Labour leadership, clearing the way for Andy Burnham and 21,000 people that voted for him in Makerfield to be our next Prime Minister. I wonder what position in the Cabinet he was promised, says Nick. Listen, I've asked for all sorts of opinions. Guy says, Jez, I'm always honest. I think it's fair to say this is not Nigel's finest hour. The biggest issue, I think, is the temperament thing. Farage gets away with it and exposes the establishment by leaning into it. He has to remain humorous and relaxed. Photo shoot with the bin man, etc. Got to lean into it. Just my tuppence. Interesting. Interesting. Julian in Newport. Jezra, if you went to the tennis this week, would you be one of the one balls at Wimbledon? Brilliant, Julian. That's because there is a story, ladies and gentlemen, on the front page of The Sun today. My £12 million lotto win bin. The ticket was lost, 12 million down the drain, so I simply asked, what have you lost, Great Britain? Tell us something. And 87222. I just said that I'd lost a testicle, which caused a lot of people to laugh. Simon, what have you lost?
Oh, I've lost various elections. I've lost various wives along the way. I've lost many houses along the way as well.
Quite a lot of dignity, all of that, mate. Yeah, we've been there. Love to know what you think, Britain. Britain. Good morning, Jez. Good morning, Simon. Damon from Wigan. In my opinion, democracy is falling apart and we're heading down a dangerous place. Andy Burnham, not one question or bit of scrutiny. However, Reform and Nigel continuously under attack. When will this stop, and how can other parties just decide we don't want someone doing right for the British people? Those are your thoughts. Let's move on to one of the other main news stories today. Telegraph, page 1. This is something that you know so much about. You were the local MP. Rochdale rapist will be deported. Mahmood to change law to kick out gang leader if the UK can meet Pakistan's demands. This is the horrendous, vile... Sorry, this man, I don't understand how this man can even be here. Habib Ahmed raped more than 50 vulnerable young white British girls. It took years for this to come out. I remember interviewing a policeman in Rochdale, a senior policeman, who said, well, we didn't want to upset, you know, certain sections by jumping up and down. This man was actually given 41 years in total, but they were a concurrent service. I think 22, got out after 14 years, back on the street where those girls were molested and raped. And I saw and heard the most astonishing piece of work by Alex Phillips. I was saying the other day on the show, I've heard ranting, but she was going, you can change the bloody law to allow Britons to drink till 5 AM overnight, but you can't, with a massive majority, change the law to get rid of this piece of crap as soon as possible. She's right.
She's completely right. This is a disgrace. And just to remind listeners, I was the MP for Rochdale 2010 to 2017. In 2012, it came to light, the prosecution of these vile perpetrators came to light in the Rochdale rape gang scandal, as it became known. I met many of the victims. I mean, what the victims went through is just absolutely appalling. I've heard it firsthand. You know, it would make you cry. There's no doubt about that. And yet they were assured when the prosecutions took place that the perpetrators would be deported. That's what the victims were told, and they've been let down time and time again, and they're being let down now. The truth is, this headline here that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is now saying we will take action to try and deport him. Of course they should. I mean, they've known he was coming out of prison for the last couple of years. They should have had this all in place. They've been negotiating with Pakistan for the last 12 months, and they still haven't got...
Negotiating, put them on a plane to Islamabad and then just let the... What is the...
Absolutely.
I don't understand how people... Again, and I try very hard not to rant every morning, why are we as soft as what's-its in this country? Why is it all right for people to come here and then find any ridiculous law to stay, and yet we can't take a man, a Pakistani gentleman who's raped, just for all the do-gooders, 50 innocent young white English girls raped. And he's walking the streets on benefits, probably.
Oh, undoubtedly, costing a fortune. Let me give you a little bit of insight. Pakistani Muslim community, some people there said to me when I was an MP, listen, deporting them is a step too far. You know, they've committed crimes, fair enough, but they shouldn't be deported. That was a view in the Muslim Pakistani community. I've heard it. But secondly, there are people in that community who still don't believe what they did is wrong. They think the girls were prostitutes and have the view that they haven't done anything wrong. Now, this is an important point, because what Labour don't want to do is to upset that community. It's a significant vote for them in the forthcoming Greater Manchester mayoral election, in any future general elections. They don't want to upset the Pakistani Muslim vote.
They lost 5 seats to independents, including one of the good guys of Labour, Jonathan Ashworth, in the last election, to 5 independent Muslim candidates who stood, and they're allowed to, but they stood on a Gaza ticket. They didn't mention anything locally, and they won tickets. So it is fair to say, without anybody going, oh, you can't say that the Muslim vote is massively significant to the Labour Party.
And that's why
But what a disgrace. But what an absolute disgrace to those innocent young girls whose lives were blighted forever.
Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous, man.
Absolutely. And look at Labour's record on this. I mean, they were all local authorities where this abuse occurred. Rochdale, Oldham, Bradford, you know, Rotherham. Labour authorities, and it's been proven by Professor Jay, who did the investigation in South Yorkshire, Baroness Casey, who did the investigation on behalf of Keir Starmer, that local politicians, and they'd be Labour politicians, by not taking action against the rape gangs, emboldened the abusers to carry on the abuse. This is the reality of it.
I think it's one of the most disgusting stains on our society. And by the way, whether it's the Tories or Labour, and I label both, I cannot believe that society has closed the doors on almost everything to not nail these. But I'm sorry, it's disgusting and it is wrong, and please God she does change the law. But they always have to be led to the water, don't they, the Labour Party? Why can't somebody have gone, do you know what? We've got a 183-seat majority. We're going to push through legislation in 24 hours and get this bit of whatever out of this country.
And we know it's coming out, and we're going to do this in advance. And we're going to negotiate.
Be on the front foot.
And be on the front foot, and insist that Pakistan take him back, and apply diplomatic pressure in terms of visas, foreign aid, and all the rest. And they could have it all set up.
Great tick, that, isn't it? Great tick.
But not in the Pakistani Muslim community where they want votes. That's the be-all and end-all of this, I assure you.
Love to know what you think of that. 20 to 7, we're live across the UK. Myself and Simon Danshuk on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense. A woman lost a ticket and with it £12 million. It's tragic. I said, what have you lost? Morning, Mick.
Morning, Jeremy. From Lincolnshire in his truck, bimbling along down to Herefordshire. What have I lost? I've lost the will to live, listening to you prattle on about either your mum's dead, you've got one ball, your dad's dead. Oh, Jeremy's on now. It really does wind me up. So, have a nice day, mate.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. The wonderful Tommy brings in cup number 2 of tea. 18 minutes to 7, Simon Danshuk is here. Listen to this, right, from Stephen Cambridge side. Just looked up the Privileges Committee that will look into Nigel Farage. It's made up of 4 Labour MPs, 1 Tory MP and 1 Liberal Democrat. Nigel's not got a chance.
No.
And many people are picking up on the fact that Kemi Badenoch said, and I quote, "We'll run a candidate in the genuine one," which people are saying, does that mean she knows the answer? Kemi has let it out of the bag. This is from Dave in Leicester. She said, "We won't stand in this by-election, we'll stand in the real by-election." How does she know there'll be another one? It's clearly a given already. If that's not a stitch-up, I don't know what the bloody hell is. You see, people, they'll suss it out. I keep saying it. Kemi has undone all the good work that she had done with me with her comments. No surprise, though. The Burnham affair is wrong, just like the Conservatives' fiasco before, and now Farage is part of the same horror show. It's called Bloody Politics, says Serena Peters in Hailsham. Morning, Jez. The reason that no other parties will fight Nigel in Clacton is because they cannot defend the fact that they will be the judges in the Standard and Ethics Committee in Parliament. That's very interesting. Eros, I hope I got that right. Surely if removing Nigel from Parliament is what the other parties want, they will be champing at the bit to beat him in Clacton.
Exactly.
And remove him once and for all, and the sooner the better, right? Well, yes, so why don't they stand? Because they know they can't beat him. Graham, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Morning, Simon. Jezza, have you ever noticed that big things happen when you take a day off? Like Farage stood down and you wasn't here. When Starmer resigned, you wasn't here. You want to take a few more days off, mate, see if we can force an election. Anyway, good show.
Right, won't be in tomorrow then. No, it is actually true. I wasn't here, but I knew that was going to happen anyway. And I like to be perfectly honest, I'm a caring, sharing person. I like to give that, what's he called, Mark Dolan? I'm joking. I want to give him the chance to shine, because I'm an old man and the beginning of the end is nigh. As Christian says, you know, I have to go and have those appointments, which I can't tell you about. You all right?
Yeah, all good. Interesting point there. I think for another reason Farage has called it right is because if he wins this by-election, comes back to Parliament, and then Parliament says, oh, we've got to have another by-election, I think they look stupid. Because the people of Clacton and everybody else will say, listen, there's just been a by-election. So the parliamentary authority saying, oh, there's got to be another one, I think doesn't stand. I think Farage has took the wind out of the sails.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different views. Bob in Bristol, morning, Jez, and so I think you're all missing a trick. What if all the other votes, Conservative, Labour, etc., all vote for Binface? He could beat Farage. Do you know what the percentages of voting were last time? Humiliation, that would be. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, again, what, you're going to say the uniparties are going to vote for a man with a bin on his face? That's ridiculous. It's a comedian. It's not even funny, is it, really?
Yeah, and if they're found to have been campaigning on behalf of Binface at the mainstream parties, how ridiculous will they look?
Well, the Labour Party flew to America and spent their time canvassing for Kamala, and we know where that ended. Jez, I've lost my hair. I'm pulling it out over the state of this bloody country. Fair enough. I'm not sure how many... This is interesting. Maria, I'm not sure how many registered voters there are in Clacton, but what will the Uniparty say if Nigel gets more votes than Burnham got in Makerfield and they got him PM? Surely that's an argument to say.
That's a good point.
That I've proven more than the man's got into Downing Street with 21. She says they should all hang their heads in utter shame the way that they're behaving. Maria, no, I've done that. Kev, Jezza Even Reeves joined in with a tweet against Farage, so I wonder who told her what to write, says Kevin Southampton. I see Mark's off as Jezzy's covering again. Morning, Jezza, from Stu in Surrey. Honestly, you buggers, I get grief. Back in 2007, honestly, when I just said losing something, it's supposed to be a bit funny. Back in 2007, I lost my gorgeous Mercedes 500 SL when it was nicked from outside my house. Insurance refused to pay out because it was not in the overnight garage as per the policy agreement, says Roger Hanso. I think that might have backfired a bit, Christian, to be honest, a bit miserable. Si, a couple of other stories for you. Keir Starmer, because of this Labour leadership today, will be out of a job a week on Monday.
Yes.
And I want you to listen to this. So on Monday the 20th of July, he will officially go to the King, hand in the seals of office, and Andy Burnham will assume power after 21,000 people voted for him. Keir Starmer yesterday, doing his best to sort of make people feel better, said, and if we win the World Cup, there'll be a bank holiday. The World Cup finals the day before he leaves office. Do you think he'll sort of call one in the morning on the 20th as he was? So just to let you know, before I disappear, having been a complete and utter flop, I'm going to give you a bank holiday.
I think he could well do. He will do anything.
That'll be him. That'll be him for his legacy.
He will do anything to try and have a positive legacy. Though I have to say, he will have the worst legacy of any Prime Minister in my...
Could you believe now, with your experience, how bad he's been, genuinely?
No, I were astonished, and I were prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt, as I always do all Prime Ministers, cross-party. Let's see how they do. But it couldn't have been worse than this. But, you know, returning to Burnham, I've known Burnham 20 years. And
have you? What's he like?
Well, he's a very friendly guy, you know. You would have a pint with him, you know, you'd have a chat and a pint with him, but he'll be a disaster. And I'm with you. By Christmas, because he can't make a decision. They don't call him flip-flop for nothing. That's why he didn't get supported to be leader in 2010.
He lost to Jeremy Corbyn and he's now the saviour of this country.
He lost to Miliband in 2010. He lost to Jeremy Corbyn in 2015. That's how bad he is. And they've had to bring him back. So the quality just isn't there. He can't make a decision. He'll be a disaster as Prime Minister. I will put money on that.
I mean, actually, I'm not even talking about personality-wise. I'm talking about the fact that this guy... You can dress it up how you damn well want, but the truth of the matter is that he is a socialist, and socialists do one of two things. They promise the earth, and then they realise that there's no money to do it other than raising tax or printing money in the old days. And inflation goes to 30%. We all remember the 70s and 80s, and then you're in trouble, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All of that, and his lack of leadership skills. That's what's going to do for him. And if you think it's been bad under Starmer, you will certainly be pulling your hair out under Burnham, because he just doesn't know what direction to go in.
Were you surprised? I mean, it was an impressive coup. You have to say that. Were you surprised at how just complete it was? He just won one seat and suddenly he's the Prime Minister.
Well, that's a really interesting point. Credit to Nigel Farage. That's who drove this. You know, it's Nigel Farage and Reform that drove this. It was local election results where Reform had done so well in May that pushed Starmer out, isn't it? That's the reality of it. That was the opportunity for Burnham to come forward. And it just illustrates how the establishment want rid of Farage, because they can see how we can damage the mainstream parties, and that's exactly what he did. The only reason Starmer is coming out of office is because of Nigel Farage and Reform's performance and the fact they've been leading in the opinion polls for so long.
0344 499 1000. Liam on Farage. Good morning, bud.
Morning, Jezza. Morning, Simon. This is now a joke. I can't take this no longer, really. They're not standing anyone against Farage because apparently it's all a show. The biggest show happens, I don't know, in London every time they all get together and discuss nothing. They do nothing. They do nothing for us. I'm a lorry driver. I've been out all week away from my family, my missus, the dog, everything. And what are they doing for me? Absolutely sod all. Do you know what? I'm backing Farage for this one, because someone has got to change something. Have a great show, Liam in his lorry.
And I think that's the point, Liam. Bless your heart for calling in. He's grafted all week, hasn't seen his wife and his dog. I like the way you got the order right. If you'd said dog and wife, you'd be in the doghouse when you get home. But it's true. So for many, Nigel Farage is a hero because he's standing against the establishment, whilst the uniparties are saying this is all about the Nigel Farage. So Sean in Bradwell, this is great. This is great, Christian. Why doesn't Two-Tier give us all a bank holiday and we leaves office? Just to hack Andy Burnham off, yeah. Jez says, Steve, here's the scenario. What if at the last minute of nominations, Reform swap Nigel for Zia? Nigel can sit outside of Parliament without its restrictions and cause total havoc.
Never thought of that.
Steve's in Cornwall,
yeah,
interesting.
Absolutely. But Liam's right there, calling in. If you want change, who do you vote for? You have to back Nigel Farage. You know, Restore's not going to do it, are they? The uniparties aren't going to create change.
They've both been given chances, absolutely.
Absolutely, they've all had chances. So if you want change in Britain, there's only one place to go for it, and that's Reform UK. Whether you like it or not, if you want radical change in Britain, you've got to support Reform UK.
Chris Gillard, I've lost my faith in British politics, period. The behaviour of the uniparties is an absolute disgrace. Morning to Bill and Ronzi. Why does not the Home Secretary say to Rochdale rape gang leader, leave the country, go back to prison? Well, yes, absolutely, but we discussed that because they're terrified of losing the Muslim vote. Angie from Manchester, I lost my vape whilst out rowing in Brighton. Then I lost my seat next to Sleazy Starmer. I'll be back in soon when my pal King of North is back, plus Lammy is doing the security. I think that might be Angela Rayner. She's now a listener, Angela Rayner. How exciting is that? Chris, Mahmood is trying to do... Mahmood trying to deal with this one Pakistani to send the vile thing back. So all of the rape gang Pakistani criminals need sending back. Bet nothing happens because they'll be too upset at their own shadows. That's true. 0344 499 1000. Is that a new voice note? He's shaking his head. Simon, there's another story to talk about. Mail, page 2. There's a surprise. A damning report by a cross-party section of MPs, it's the Mail, has rejected Keir Starmer's claim that due process was followed in the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. Humiliation for Starmer again as MPs say number 10 forced through the Mandelson job. I still cannot believe, a bit like I can't believe David Cameron didn't just say to the British public, you asked for a referendum, I'm not going to tell you where I stand on it, you vote and I'll carry it out, but he went off in hissy fit. I can't believe that Starmer is still clinging whole, because we all know the truth about Mandelson, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Starmer was insistent upon making Mandelson the US ambassador. I mean, that...
Why?
Well, that's an exceptionally good question. You know, Mandelson has been in Labour and behind a lot of Labour activity for many years, hasn't he? So you know, the people in Labour have just loved Mandelson for a whole range of different reasons. I mean, the guy is quite strategic, quite good at elections and advising and things like this. But we also know that he's exceptionally flawed in terms of the company that he kept and the way that he was insistent upon making money. I mean, that's the reality of it, isn't it? And he's found wanted. This is the real scandal in British politics.
Yep.
This is the big scandal, and this is real. You know, the guy's being investigated by the police, isn't he? And he was a close friend to the world's biggest known paedophile. I mean, that's big news. Talking about Farage and the gift and everything else is nothing compared to this.
I mean, I thought, you know, the Badenoch thing, I think it's a problem for her. But to listen to Keir Starmer say he's up to his neck in sleaze. Are you sorry, are you having a jerry? He's having a laugh. Dave, good morning.
Uni Party, they're all recoiling. Oh, good morning, Jezza. They're all recoiling at this Farage scandal. But how does this, as a scandal, compare to actively inhibiting the progress of the grooming gang inquiry? That's a bigger scandal, surely, than someone giving Nigel Farage $5 million for security before he was an MP. Look at the real scandals. They're the scandals.
Couldn't agree more. Morning to Gertie. She says, this is Kemi's ultimate trail of Tory voters by not showing strength, conviction and leadership. She'd rather align herself with Labour. This is not what the Tory voters want from a leader who would rather join forces with one of the worst PMs in UK history than risk Farage winning. If they truly believe in the same priorities as Reform UK, why side with Labour instead of fighting for those principles? Conservative voters deserve a leader who stands up for them, not one who appears prepared to put political manoeuvring ahead of the people who elected her and them.
I think that's a really important point. I think this is bad news for Kemi. I think I do. I think she's taken the wrong side again, and she took the wrong side in that absolutely tragic murder of Henry Novak. You had her and Starmer agreeing on the whole issue around that, and I think that was a big mistake, and this is a mistake for her as well. I think she's on the wrong side of history here, and it will actually do her harm, not immediately, but in the medium term. I think not supporting Farage will be a mistake for her.
Quick story for you here. We've only got a couple of minutes. Tens of millions of pounds is to be spent revamping nearly 13,000 toilets and 5,000 changing rooms across Britain so they are compliant with new guidance on single-sex spaces.
Oh, goodness me. I mean, we're still going on about this. It needs once and for all just got men and female toilets. And I tell you, the vast majority of people out there that you meet in the pubs, supermarkets, elsewhere, just don't get this agenda. It's a small minority, not least of Labour politicians.
And activists, as Christian said to me, there's bloody activists everywhere, aren't there? People that jump on any bandwagon. Right, to sum it up, you've been brilliant as ever. We love having you on. Nigel Farage saying that the Clacton by-election is important. Every other party, bar Count Binface, has pulled out. They're saying it's a farce. But interestingly, we picked up on it this hour. Kemi Badenoch and Starmer, but Kemi Badenoch specifically saying, we'll wait for the real election and then we'll lay a candidate out, which makes us all wonder whether she already knows it's going to be a stitch-up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the main concern. And I think it is a stitch-up. I think the whole furore around Farage is to put him on the back foot. He's been attacked by the establishment. But credit to him, yet again, he's come out fighting, and I think he'll win the day.
You do. And in terms of contempt for the electorate, that could come back and bite both of the main parties. And also the other big news story of the day, finally, Mahmood sets changed the law so Rochdale rapists can be deported. Should have done it sooner.
Oh, yeah, and a previous caller made this point, and it's a really good one. You know, the Uni Party would rather be talking about Binface and the by-election and everything like that. Why aren't they talking about the real scandal, which is the Rochdale rape gang scandal?
Can you explain to me in 20 seconds why successive Prime Ministers and government haven't realised the power and anger amongst the British people about this?
That's been building up over years, hasn't it? And they just want to avoid it as an issue because it might cost them votes. That's the reality of this. It's all about votes. Playing politics with a scandal like the rape gang scandal is absolutely atrocious, and it's another nail in the coffin of the Uni Party.
Simon Danship, we love having you on, my friend. Thank you so much indeed. Former Labour MP and Reform defector Simon Danship, almost 7 o'clock. We're live across the UK. And next, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, will be live and exclusive exclusive on Talk Breakfast. That after the news at 7, which is next.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Well, you know what? In the end, he did do the right thing, and there were some achievements, and he's an honourable man, and he cared about public service. Guys, that's not what happened just now. In the last half an hour, Keir Starmer resigned, and he resigned because he was pushed. Most of his issues, most of the things which have damned him from, let's face it, within days, within weeks of him becoming Prime Minister back in July 2024, or of his own making. They were things he chose to do, cutting the winter fuel allowance, damning everybody who wanted to have a public inquiry on the grooming gangs as jumping onto the far-right bandwagon, the two-tier policing after the Southport riots. This man brought it on himself. He was not a good Prime Minister.
There was two things on that manifesto. One was a picture of Keir Starmer and the word change. Well, promise made and promise delivered in that sense. Let's be honest. But look, I mean, I don't really want to make light of it, but I am cheesed off, Julia, because what we promised in opposition was competence, and it's been anything but. I'm embarrassed. I'm really, truly, honestly, I am embarrassed because I did think we would be competent. We've not been.
I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation. But what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will. We vote for somebody in a general election to be our Prime Minister. We expect them to serve their term. And barring ill health or exceptional circumstances, what is going on here, frankly, is reminiscent of a banana republic that has totally devalued the very process of general elections and democracy. We at Reform demand a general election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back or welcome along. Just gone 7 o'clock. We're live across the UK. What is it? Thursday morning on the home of common sense. JK till 10. And as ever, my friends, your involvement always welcome. 0344 499 1000 for your calls and for your voice notes. You can, of course, send us a text 87222. What are we talking about? Well, the main news story centres, as it has done for the last couple of days, around Nigel Farage. He, of course, delivering that speech on Tuesday night saying that he feels hamstrung by the pile-on from the media and the establishment and was thus resigning as an MP in Clacton and holding a by-election because, in his words, did the people of Clacton see him as, apparently so many in the media do, as a crook? Or are, in fact, they in support of his belief that this pylon is instigated by the establishment, which is terrified of the millions of people that support reform and want change? They responded, the uniparties, by having nothing to do. We're not putting candidates in. This is an absolute farce. A couple of things you should pick up on, actually, because in doing that, Nigel Farage and Reform will say that they are showing contempt for the electorate. What's quite interesting as well, we'll play the clip in a minute, but Kemi Badenoch made a point where she said, and I quote, "I'm not standing a candidate in this farce of a by-election. I'll stand one in the real election." And many people this morning saying, does that mean she knows already this is going to be a stitch-up? Because the Privileges Committee is made up of 6 people, ladies and gentlemen, 4 Labour MPs, 1 Tory MP and 1 Liberal Democrat MP. So maybe the establishment knows what it's doing already. That isn't me blindly supporting Nigel Farage and Reform. It's giving the facts as they are. And I'll give you one other fact as well, which is really relevant. For the people on the Labour side who have come out going, this is outrageous that Nigel Farage can imagine that 20,000 plus people in Clacton can justify who he is. Well, let me tell you this. On the day the Labour leadership nominations close and nobody has even dared to stick their head above a parapet against whom? What's his name again? Oh, yeah, Andy Burnham. He won Makerfield with 21,000 votes and so warped his our system. He's going to walk up the steps of Downing Street in about 10 days' time and become our Prime Minister with no scrutiny at all. 0344 499 1000. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. Brian here. Regarding the upcoming Clacton by-election, it's hilarious that Nigel will be representing the people and the establishment will be represented by a rubbish bin. I also note that they don't really want to get involved because it could be in August, and them lazy dossers, they have 19 weeks holiday a year, MPs, and they don't want to be working during the summer like the rest of us have to, having a doss.
I'm not sure whether we should label all MPs dossers, but here's a good old dosser. Good morning, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. It's a bit harsh, sort of 7 o'clock on a Thursday morning, but the sun is shining, and what an extraordinary turn of events. So the choice is basically vote Nigel to bin the establishment. That's the bottom line, because the establishment have put their confidence in essentially in a bin. And it is quite extraordinary, as you've just been outlining, that you've got Kemi Badenoch essentially assuming guilt from the Standards Committee. You've got the Liberal Democrats saying the same. And then we hear yesterday that this Standards Commission report might take a year. And which is basically what they were trying to do, was to leave this hanging over Nigel and Reform. And quite rightly, we've said, forget it. We're taking it to the people. It's the people that matter. And the good people of Clacton-on-Sea will have their opportunity to reinforce their support for Nigel, which I've no doubt whatsoever they will do. That is essentially, I mean, it is taking voters for fools, where Kemi Badenoch says, well, I'm not going to fight this by-election, but I'll fight one a bit later. I mean, it's just, it's extraordinary. The cowardice, the frips, the chicken-like behaviour of all the main parties is, it's completely patronising to the electorate.
It's quite interesting. Somebody rang earlier, Rich, and said, so if you don't support Nigel Farage and you don't support reform in Clacton, what are you supposed to do? The democratic process would always have been that everybody would, in most instances, run a candidate. I hadn't picked up on the Kemi. I'm going to play it, actually, for people who are just tuning in, Richard, because Kemi Badenoch, responding yesterday to Nigel Farage, had this to say. Have a watch, my friends.
Nigel Farage is having a hissy fit because the first time he's actually having to deal with some real scrutiny. What he needs to do is be honest about where his fishy £5 million came from, rather than calling a fake by-election to run away from a standards investigation. We will be standing a candidate in the real by-election because no one is above Parliament. Parliament is bigger than all of us. We all have to follow the same rules. We all have to register our interests. What this by-election is a gimmick. This is him wanting to make everything about himself rather than his offer to the country at a time when we have a defence crisis, a retiring Prime Minister, so much change and turbulence. Conservative Party is the only party that's actually focused on the issues that matter to people.
Richard, I'm always honest, and I hadn't picked up when I first saw that this morning, but many people picking up on what she said, you know, that the real election, does she know something? We've talked about the privileged committee. Fishy £5 million. Listen, I've said very honest, you know, I'm straight with you, you're straight with me. I don't know about any of that. What I know is, and actually the one thing I wanted to ask you, have you, I know what you probably will say and don't want to say, but have you been surprised in any way by the magnitude of the pile-on? We've heard stories about Robert Jenrick. There was some stuff about you yesterday. I know you don't want to get into that, but have you been surprised by the weight of the pile-on, Richard?
Look, we always knew that the establishment would come after us, but the way they are doing it is, and the coordination of doing it is quite extraordinary. And you've got the pile-on against Nigel. You've got Kemi Badenoch there essentially denying traditional British rules, which are you're innocent until proven guilty. In her words, you're guilty until we say you might be innocent. And that's what the Lib Dems have done as well. Yeah, all of a sudden, the pile-on against Robert, the pile-on against me, literally criminality taking place at the heart of our most senior crime agency, releasing bank statements and details of private bank conversations between me and my bank manager. I mean, this is all, they are literally now quite happy to break the law in order to try and attack reform and senior people. And look, we're tough, we'll ride through it, because actually every day I get stopped on the street by people who say, please don't let them get you down, please keep battling on, you're the last hope to save the country. And that's why, despite all of the stuff, we're still leading in the national polls. And the real question, the real scrutiny should be put on the coup that is going on, where someone is going to rock up to number 10 on the basis of 25,000 votes.
And I agree with that. And listen,
there is no scrutiny whatsoever. We don't know what it stands for. We've got no idea about his positions on defence, on foreign affairs, on the economy, on immigration, on how he's going to stop the boats. Who is this bloke? Andy who?
I tell you what I thought as well, and I, you know me, I'm straight. I don't ever want to become seen as conspiratorial, right? But the pile-on, and you touched upon your stuff, and that's between you. I mean, I think it needs reiterating to people that, without going into details, stuff is being leaked to newspapers, private stuff, ladies and gentlemen, that can only come from establishment institutions. That's all I'm saying. There is no way these people could have got this stuff unless that it was leaked. But, you know, it's really interesting for me that through all of this, there's one thing that people haven't said, and I'm going to say it all morning. You just touched upon Andy Burnham. In 10 days, on the basis of 24,900 people voting for him in Makerfield, which he won fair and square, he is going to accept the seals of office from his king, King Charles, be driven to 10 Downing Street and assume control of the highest office of the land. Every bit of this pile-on to me on reform, which was always going to come, the timing smells fishy. I'm using Kemi Badenoch's words, because there is not 1 ounce of scrutiny right now about Andy Burnham, because every single newspaper and every single news channel, not this one, because I credit, is doing one thing, which is looking at reform. Of course, reform should be looked at. And people in reform made mistakes, they will be brought to task, and you'd be the first to admit this. But no bugger is talking about Andy Burnham, who will assume the biggest job in the land in 10 days, Richard. That's wrong.
And it's quite extraordinary. And he is... the remarkable fact is that there are 400 Labour MPs in the House of Commons, none of them think that they are good enough to run the country. And therefore, they've basically outsourced it to some bloke that 7 million people across the UK didn't have the vote when Andy Burnham was last in the House of Commons. And that's the reality. He's been mayor of a great city of Manchester. Some nice new buildings have been built there. There are court cases regarding loans from the mayoralty and all sorts of other things. If you look at homelessness in Manchester, I'm told that it's tripled in the 9 years that he was mayor. So, let's have some proper scrutiny about his actual track record. And, who is this bloke? And that's what we need to be asking. And he essentially will have no scrutiny from MPs now until the first week of September. So he can just sort of drift around running the country from the 20th of July until early September. And everyone's saying, who are you?
So actually, that's a really relevant point. So not only will he accede to this on the basis of 24,070 votes it was, he will also become Prime Minister, and he doesn't have to stand up in the House of Commons and face any scrutiny from any opposition party till September. Shouldn't Parliament be recalled? Shouldn't Parliament be recalled when the new Prime Minister is elected?
There you are. I mean, 6 weeks later is the first time he will face any scrutiny. And it's an outrage. He'll be making serious decisions about the running of this country with no democratic mandate whatsoever. And, people complain about the legitimacy of this by-election. This is a totally legitimate by-election. And the others are scared witless, which is why they refuse to stand against Nigel. And whereas actually Mr. Burnham, he doesn't want to face the scrutiny. He doesn't want to face the electorate. So, we've said, bring it on. Let's have a general election before the November budget so that people can vote on what matters. And our message is very clear. Britain is broken. Britain is in serious financial, cultural and social trouble. And the only people who can fix it boldly and bravely and courageously is reform. And let's put that to the people. But, oh, no, the establishment uniparties, they don't want that. They don't want to be embarrassed, whether it's in a by-election in Clacton-on-Sea or, it seems, across the whole of the United Kingdom.
Because then, presumably, the structure by which they've all succeeded in ruling for years and years could be broken. I also noticed the other day that Burnham, we don't know a lot about Burnham, he's quite keen on proportional representation, which will change even the very basis of how we run our elections. Look what they're doing in the mayoralty in Manchester. They're changing that. And there's something else as well. At the risk of being seen as anything other than trying to steer a middle course, we should remember that reform enabled 4.7 million people to vote in the local elections. And a lot of people, and I get this, are fed up to the back teeth with Keir Starmer. The man's been potentially the worst Prime Minister, I would imagine, in my lifetime. Not up to the job. Is he decent? I don't think you're decent if you screw pensioners and farmers and waspy women and give away islands to... I don't think he's decent at all. I think he was up to the job. But I said it earlier, and I'd love your take on this from a reform point of view, Rich. We all know, if we're old enough, and you are older than me, which is great to know, 64, they're not years old, born in. The truth is this. The Labour Party have one way of doing business. They promise everybody everything, and they either print money in the old days and inflation goes through the roof, or they tax Middle England, the red wall. That is what is going to happen. He has a shortfall in his budget on defence and everything else. You can dress up and you can say everything, but this country is heading for a left-wing socialist government that didn't get elected by the British people, and times will get worse. Sorry to be miserable. It's a fact, isn't it?
It's a combination of both of those things, that people will pay ever more taxes for declining public services, declining safety on our streets, and the government will continue to borrow vast, vast sums of money, equivalent to over £5,000 per household per year, which is a staggering sum of money. And eventually, as socialists always do, they will run out of other people's money. That's where we're headed, and we're the only people with the courage to call it out, and how you turn that round, scrapping that stupid zero, not paying welfare to overseas nationals who supposedly came here to work, and now we hear actually one social care worker is bringing 12 to 15 dependents. It's not surprising we're going bust. And, huge numbers of people getting PIP for a little bit of anxiety. I mean, all of this stuff is completely insane. And that's why I was saying, actually, we've got to have the courage to call it out, and it's not sustainable. At every level, it's not sustainable, whether it's the safety on our streets or whether it's the money in your pocket. And the country is in serious trouble. Britain is broken, and that's what Nigel is calling out in having this by-election. And the choice is, if you want the establishment, you vote for the bin. If you want change and you want reform, you vote for Nigel. Nigel will win hands down, and that will send a very clear message to the British people.
Finally, pal, lots of people. Listen, there'll be critics. There have been on text. I've read them out. But the majority of people that listen and phone in and tune into this station all believe that, reform offers change. Many people this morning texted me saying, with everything that you've all had, the fight will continue, won't it? Is the message from people. And that's one of the reasons why we're delighted you're on, because a lot of people have put a lot of belief and faith into Nigel Farage and the Reform Party.
Of course, and we take that responsibility and that faith and that trust incredibly seriously, and that's what we're battling for. And the reality is every day easy and plain sailing? Of course not.
No.
In a sense, it shouldn't be if one wants the honour of running the country. We welcome the scrutiny, and there'll be good days and bad days. But we are determined to give the British people, starting with the good people of Clacton-on-Sea, the opportunity to reinforce their appetite for change, their appetite for reform. And it's very simple. If you want to save the country, if you recognise it's broken, then there's only one answer, and that is reform can sort this out.
Richard, listen, I know you're a busy man, mate, with loads on your plate. We so appreciate you coming on this morning. Good lad. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform. 0344 499 1000, 7:20. Dan, Burnham isn't getting scrutiny because the main opposition don't want a general election. If reform didn't exist, Kemi would be screaming for that general election. We are living in a false democracy. Chris Dully takes the other view. Farage needs to grow up. We have enough children currently pretending to be politicians. I thought reform were grown-ups with real-life experience, but this is just another play from the Labour playbook. Farage needs to put his toys back in the pram. Paul in York, I'm a fan of Nigel Farage. However, read the gift. I can't help my children with a deposit for a house without incurring capital gains tax. Can we find out, please, how much Nigel paid on that $5 million? We can put that question. Linda, Starmer, Farage, Sleaze. Is he having a last-minute laugh? I don't think he had a sense of humour. Bye-bye, Starmer. Don't forget to pack your free suits and glasses. Kemi, well done for informing the electorate there will be a proper by-election. Seems the main parties think it's all a game. When will they realise the public is their employer? Their boss will show them who's in charge. Farage. Morning, Jez. Poppy in Birmingham, I think you both underestimate Restore. Why have you not mentioned his meeting due with Elon Musk? Remember, Jez, they underestimated Winston Churchill. Rupert Lowe is our next Winston Churchill. Steve from Yorkshire. This is all because, you see, I'm in the middle of the front of the Sun today. A woman lost a £12 million ticket and lost the lottery. And I said, what have you lost? I said, I lost a testicle. Steve from Yorkshire. See, I'm in the middle of a thing about reform. Just to say I lost my virginity, you might say, well, what's that going to do? But he said, if you could see me, you'd understand that was a bloody miracle. And I love this. Neil says, Jezza, I've lost the remote, which is why I'm stuck watching your ugly chops this morning. Morning, Phil.
Good morning, Jeremy. What a lovely sunny day. There's hope in my heart. Right. The Tories are saying, and the uni parties, that they're not going to participate in this show. Well, they produced a bloody show and directing the show by reporting Nigel to the committee. So now they produced the show, they don't want to watch their own show or be part of their own show. And now they're blaming Nigel and Reform for their massive cock-up. My God, they can't see how stupid they are. Regards, Phil.
The thing that most makes me angry about Keir Starmer talking about the need to defend our country, and he's gone out of his way to not make the tough decisions to actually do the thing to defend our nation. It's cowardly, and I think it's treacherous.
Nothing to say on immigration, nothing to say on benefits, nothing to say on jobs, nothing to say on tax. Absolutely appalling. If this is the solution the country's been waiting for, then we are in a very, very bad place.
People up and down the country are asking why they are always being put second. They work every day, they get up, they pay their bills, they look after their kids, and yet the other side of the social contract is not being held up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:25. We're live across the UK on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. 0344 499 1000. We heard there from Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform, talking about this whole Farage debacle surrounding Clapton, or even Clacton. Always good to get balance on this show. We're delighted now to be joined by the Labour MP for St Austell and Newquay. What a great place. Noah Law, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Jeremy.
The one thing that I always try and do on this is take all sides, and I think it's really important. Nigel Farage, the speech on Tuesday, saying in no uncertain terms that the pylon, both personally and professionally and to his family, is an establishment pylon aimed at distracting conversation about what's really going on in this country and avoiding scrutiny of the incoming Prime Minister, and that your parties, the Conservative parties, the Green Party and Liberal Democrats, refusing to place a candidate in Clacton is contempt for the electorate. What do you say to that?
I wouldn't say that because, you know, he doesn't have to stand. He won a mandate from the people of Clacton 2 years ago, and that mandate stands, as do the rules upon which he was elected and which we all have to abide by. So, you know, we all know why he's called this contest.
Why?
Which is essentially to appoint himself as judge and jury of the process that's meant to be going on. I mean, he's trying to wriggle out of it.
Well, all right, no, and listen, it's important we get all sides, but the process concerns me because there's two things that concern me. One is the process could take up to 6 months or a year. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think in fairness
that's paralysis, isn't it?
In fairness to some of the Reform commentators, I noticed that Layla Cunningham, for example, was pointing out that this whole process takes too long, and that's not helpful for anyone. And to be fair, I think there is something in that. You know, these processes exist for a reason, and it's really important that we get the message out there to the public. But
if our Prime Minister can enforce legislation within 10 minutes to get the pubs to stay open for England, I'm not sitting here, by the way, I want you to know this, I'm not sitting here saying, I don't know anything about the money, I don't know if there's right or wrong done. That's my hands in the air. I'm talking about the process. Not only are we told it's going to take ages, I find out this morning the Privileges Committee is made up of 4 Labour MPs, 1 Tory MP and 1 Liberal Democrat. Now, I'm not a voice piece for reform, but how is that balanced? How does Nigel Farage get, in effect, a balanced hearing?
I think that the first part of that process is completely independent with the Standards Commissioner, and that's really important. As you say, later on in that process comes a panel made up of cross-party MPs. And to be honest, I was a little bit surprised as well to hear just the level of involvement of parliamentarians in that process. But I think it's really crucial to emphasise that the initial part of that, with the Standards Commissioner, is an independent process.
But you would understand my argument that if he thinks the establishment and the uniparties are out to get him, to have him to face 6 MPs, of which 4 are Labour and 2 are Tory and 1's a Liberal Democrat, there isn't any balance. That's the issue, isn't it? And of course I understand what he's doing. He's saying it's us, it's you against the establishment. You think, though, him standing in Clacton and trying to secure 20,000 plus votes is a farce, do you?
So Reform will always pretend to be the party of the, anti-establishment, but which, if Nigel is the man on the street, which man on the street do you know that's getting £5 million bungs from convicted criminals and
Who's a
donations from convicted criminals that he then thought weren't worthy of declaration, even though these are significant sums and
he says before he was an MP.
Yeah, and obviously that is an important distinction.
That's the issue, right?
That's an important distinction, but the question is, were these things used for the benefit of campaigning? Social media, for example, I think social media staffing was given, and that is a really serious indiscretion, right? It's if you're going to basically put money or resource into a campaign, you've got to be straight with the public about that. We're all bound by those rules.
But it isn't cash for questions. He says it was a personal gift. I understand that there are questions about that. I do. And it's not for me to sit here and say how that's going to work out. I think it's going to take too long. I think the Privilege Committee is imbalanced. I understand to a degree what he's done. I want to talk about the unit. I mean, where do you stand on this Count Binface as being the only person? I mean, I'm going to play you a clip which my viewers think absolutely nails the whole problem we've got here. Can you play Kemi on Farage, please? Have you seen this from Kemi Badenoch? This is interesting.
Nigel Farage is having a hissy fit because the first time he's actually having to deal with some real scrutiny. What he needs to do is be honest about where his fishy £5 million came from, rather than calling a fake by-election to run away from a standards investigation. We will be standing a candidate in the real by-election because no one is above Parliament. Parliament is bigger than all of us. We all have to follow the same rules. We all have to register our interests. What this by-election is a gimmick. This is him wanting to make everything about himself rather than his offer to the country at a time when we have a defence crisis, a retiring Prime Minister, so much change and turbulence. Conservative Party is the only party that's actually focused on the issues that matter to people.
Now, I hadn't picked this up, which is why I love my listeners. What did she say there? You're an MP. She said, and I quote, "I'll run a candidate in the real election." So that says to millions of people that it's going to be a stitch-up, and she already knows, or the uniparties are aware, that it's already a done deal. Why would she say in the real one?
There's no need for an election right now.
No, but why would she say the real one?
The real one?
Because there will only be another one if the Privileges Committee finds him guilty. She's let the cat out of the bag there.
So I understand, and again, I think reflecting the fact that I didn't pick up on that, it shows there isn't a sort of stitch-up here, and that is what people will try to make out. The reality is that there could be a by-election if the people of Clacton choose to force that on the back of the Privileges Committee findings.
Do you think that you have your view? What about? I mean, are you prepared to say on air what you said off air about Count Binface? You don't have to.
Well, obviously, there's a question mark as to whether people who don't want to see Farage in will go out and vote for him, go out and campaign for him.
What, the Labour Party and the Tory Party could campaign for Count Binface?
I think we've all got our own rules around whether you can support...
Why wouldn't you stand your own candidate? Why would you support a joke candidate who's a comedian?
I think at the end of the day, we don't subscribe to the idea that this election is even necessary. It's called at the behest of Farage.
Would you go and campaign for Count Binface?
I'm not going to campaign for Binface, even though I think it would be fair to say that sending a message to Nigel Farage by voting Binface is something that a lot of people in Clacton, I suspect, might be inclined to do.
So you're saying that Count Binface is a better candidate than Nigel Farage?
I think that at the end of the day, it's a very low bar at this point.
Because you lot have refused to put a candidate in. Can I ask you a question that was put to me earlier, and I appreciate you coming in. Somebody funny said, I'm not a Reform supporter, I'm a Labour supporter. What the hell am I supposed to do when this happens? There were 30,000 people who didn't vote for Farage last time in Clacton. He got 21,225 votes. What are those people supposed to do? Are they being let down by the main parties not running a candidate? That's a good question.
I think this is a really unusual situation.
Yeah.
I think let's just make that clear to start with, and I totally empathise if you're a Labour voter, a Lib Dem, a Conservative, whatever in Clacton. This is painful, right? Nobody thinks that this election should be happening.
Is it because is it just because it's a very small number of people that he's trying to use, if you like, to prove his point? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think in essence that is the attempt.
But then you have a problem, don't you? And I feel like I've just fed you something and you've swallowed it hook, line and sinker. He expects... Last time he got 21,500 votes, and he's going to maybe increase that, maybe decrease it, but he, Nigel Farage, is saying that if I go to Clacton and I get 25,000 votes, that proves that the establishment are against me, but the people of Clacton are with me. And all the parties seem to think that's outrageous. But let me put this to you, Noah. 24,927 people in Makerfield voted for a man who has no scrutiny. We don't know what he stands for, and in 10 days he's going to stride up Downing Street and become the Prime Minister of this country without anybody knowing anything about him. What's the difference?
In fairness, we've spoken quite a bit about what Andy Burnham stands for.
But what's the difference?
On this show.
What's the difference between him?
The key difference here,
and Nigel,
being a very different situation,
yep,
is that we live in a parliamentary democracy. We know that Prime Ministers can come in these situations, and that ultimately Parliament is the body that decides.
Doesn't say a lot about you,
400
400 Labour, not you personally. Doesn't say an awful lot about the Labour MPs that you had to sort of have somebody flown in from outside, that there wasn't somebody good enough inside Parliament.
I think there were plenty of decent contenders that...
Why doesn't they stand against him then?
I think it speaks volumes about the support for Andy, that some of these really, really brilliant... you know, I spoke to Al Carnes, I spoke to Darren Jones, we've got, you know, got brilliant women in the party as well, and goodness knows I'd like to see one of them step up at some point and lead our party.
Do you not think it would have been better for your party in the country if somebody had stood against Burnham? Because the word stitch up, the phrase stitch up, to a lot of people is... It was a brilliant coup, let me just say. I mean, it worked perfectly. That was like the best coup I've ever seen. But is it fair that a man that we still know very little about, save the bus thing and what he's done in Manchester, is going to be the Prime Minister? Do you know what I mean?
As you say, Jeremy, if it had been a coup, then it would have been brilliant. But the reality is that we went through essentially a process.
And
others were allowed to stand. They didn't essentially get the support because people were vesting that support in Andy Burnham, and there are some brilliant colleagues on the Labour benches. You know, you hear a lot about the quality of MPs, and I think it's a bit sad that the discourse has gone that way. There are some absolutely brilliant, very experienced colleagues from all walks of life, including from the business and financial world.
There's nobody on the front bench from a business point of view.
I'm not the only person from that background.
And listen, I've always said it about this show. People can love it or hate it. It's good to get all views. Just to finish, Keir Starmer finishes next Monday. I'm just wondering about his legacy. He said in the papers today that he'll give a bank holiday if England win the World Cup. Two things today would suggest the legacy isn't going to be great. A damning report by MPs rejects his claim that due process was followed in the disastrous appointment of Peter Mandelson. And a major review by the Department of Work and Pensions has said the disability benefit system is unfit for purpose and discourages work. It's not a legacy, really, is it? He's been a complete flop.
I think on the first point, obviously we've got processes in place to make sure that appointment process is reviewed properly, and that you know, time will tell a fuller picture of what really happened there.
Big mistake though, wasn't it?
And why absolutely it's a mistake, but I think Keir is someone that I'm very proud to have served under. He's someone that, amidst some of the more pithy mistakes, alongside what
pithy?
I think alongside what
putting
we've
him as
discussed,
the ambassador is pithy.
A
man is going to probably
is a mistake, but I think some of the things
mistake.
I think some of the things that have ultimately led to his wane in popularity and mandate have been, I would argue, quite pithy, whilst he has simultaneously gotten some of the big,
What does pithy mean?
Picture calls
What does pithy mean?
At the end,
it's got nothing right domestically.
How long have you got, Jeremy? The economy is growing faster than that of our peers.
We're 12th in NATO for defence spending. Pithy is not upsetting 10 million pensioners by lying to them, upsetting the farming community by lying to them, upsetting women.
Pensioners have had a massive pay rise under this government. That is just, you know, that's the facts.
Your own people said that 4,000 old people would have died last winter because your government denied them those heating things. You cannot deny the fact that was the first problem.
Winter fuel was a mistake, but at the same time, it's couple that with the Mandelson scandal, I don't think it was just those two things. I think the reality is, and we all know that, and I'm happy to be very candid on this show about it, is that many of the mistakes that built up to the picture we're in now were actually relatively pithy when I would argue overall history will look far more favourably on Sir Keir and the legacy there, because he's got many of the big calls right.
Listen, we have to finish and we have to agree to disagree, but I will say this and I will say it always, Noah, you are good enough to come on and I appreciate that. I'm not sure he has a legacy. You would have a different opinion, but thank you very much, Steve. Noah Law, MP for beautiful constituencies in Austell and Newquay on Talk Breakfast. Back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's get back to it straight away. 20 minutes to 8 o'clock, live across the UK on The Breakfast Show on Talk, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits, whatever you want to talk about. 0344 499 1000. Very good morning to, well, if I ever was in politics, this would be my chief of staff, James Price. Good morning.
Blimey, that would be a dangerous combo, wouldn't it, my friend? Let's get it done.
Be the best. You were laughing, I hear, during that last interview. Yes. Listen, I have to point out, Noah Law, good enough to come in. He has a different political view. It's important to give all sides. I'm interested in your take on the Farage thing. We had Richard Tice on. We've had Noah Law on. He says it's deadly serious, and he believes that the Labour and the main parties are showing contempt for the electorate by not standing. Count Binface, ludicrous, seems to be the only one. There was a slight point there from Noah where I thought he was going to admit that other parties might be supporting Binface. Here's the bit that came out this morning, though, James, that got picked up, not by me or anybody here, but by a listener. Did you see the interview with Kemi Badenoch yesterday, or the speech when she attacked Farage?
Yeah, I did. I just think that's a fairly easy experiment. The Conservative headquarters, Lib Dem, Green, whatever, and you had the numbers that said, actually, look at this, we've got the voter intentions in, and we think we could win this by-election. Do you think any of those parties would then fail to field a candidate if it meant taking their biggest rival off the playing field? No, obviously not. But I think that at the very least, let's put away this idea that any other party is not standing because it's a farce or anything else. I think it's because they know that Farage would win. Now, you can say this is just classic politics, and I think that's probably quite sensible for them not to go and contest it, so as to try and counter Farage's risky, daring, whatever you want to call it, move. But the idea that it's pure principle to give people less of a choice when it comes to an election seems a little bit silly for me, given whatever party it may be.
But it's interesting what Kemi said, and what I wanted to put to you was, she said, I'm not running a candidate in this farce of election about his fishy 5 million. I'll wait for the real by-election after the selection committee. Now, again, I've proven it this hour. We'll talk all sides. That sounds to me like she and others already believe that he's already going to be judged and he's going to be guilty. We looked at the Privileges Committee this morning. It's made up of 6 people, 4 Tories, 1 Labour. No, 4 Labour, 1 Tory and 1 Liberal Democrat. Now, I know Reform's only got 5 seats in the House of Commons, but how is that going to be balanced? It's not going to be balanced. And so I presume Farage thinks if I can get ahead of the game, at least I've got the summer. This is sort of unprecedented, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's two different bits in all of this. You might remember from also the Brexit wars back in the day, there are lots of people pushing for a second referendum, and however awful and undemocratic that might have been, all the people on the Leave side were actually kind of really up for it, because it would be the easiest campaigning slogan of all time. Simply tell them again. And if this were to happen, I think electorally, Farage would already have spent all that summer going around collecting all those voter intentions and working out and improving his data even more, whilst the other parties hadn't done that. Then he'd be able to say, look, this fast, they're making this happen again. You know, let's go and tell them again, however right or wrong that might be. And the moral to it, I think electorally that would be quite impressive. The second thing I've got a real problem with is this idea that other MPs can gang together, exactly as you say, and kick people who are democratically elected out of Parliament. I think that is constitutionally a very, very bad thing indeed. And you look at some historians who are talking about this on Twitter. There's a great person everybody should follow called George Hours, who's on Twitter, I think, as Capel Loft, named after an 18th century politician, who points out this is the kind of stuff that was happening in the 18th century after the Glorious Revolution, when Parliament was finally understood to be the sovereign power, that MPs would gang together and vote to kick out people who they thought were a threat to their own ability to govern or ability to gain office or anything else. I think it's actually a really dangerous anti-democratic symbol. If you want Nigel Farage to lose, and lots of people do, and I'm sure there are very good reasons for it and against it, then he should lose at the ballot box at the same time, ideally, as everybody else. But every other attempt, whether it was Boris and the Privileges Committee before, or anything else like this, or the ways in which our constitution has been so badly damaged for so many decades now, is totally, totally wrong. And I think it's a travesty.
I agree. And it's not, listen, I've said it and I'll keep saying it. If there is any business that I don't know about those monies, then that will be found out. But to me, it strikes, you know, you're going to take 6 months. That suits you all. That's ridiculous. You could name a new licence for people to drink last week during the World Cup game overnight. It shouldn't take that long. It is going to be biased in the people that are in it. But again, the whole premise for me is you've got this man, and nobody seems to have picked up on this as well. He flew in from America on Saturday night. I don't know if you saw this, or maybe it was Sunday night or Monday morning when he said that piece to Sky News, who lied, didn't they, about the journalist going to his daughter's house? But there we go, we'll just drop that in. I wonder if he'd spent time with... I know he apparently had dinner with J.D. Vance, and you wonder how much of this me against the establishment was not encouraged, but discussed out there. I've never seen him so angry. I've never seen him so attacked, not attacked, so affected by something. But this pile-on, I mean, just to put this to you, Richard Tice was on at 7 o'clock, James. Some of the information about generic... Richard said this himself... bank statements, right? Bank statements that The Guardian have had, right? That has to have been leaked. That is fundamentally wrong, whatever your political persuasion. That's why they're calling it out. If that happened to a Labour MP, a Tory MP, a Liberal Democrat, a Green, it's just because it's reform. That is absolutely repugnant.
Yeah, absolutely right. Like, it should go without saying, given that I'm talking to you on a media programme and you've not told me what I can and cannot say, and we know that a free press is a very important and vital thing for a healthy democracy to have. I will say that the kinds of pressures, not of legitimate scrutiny, but of looking into people's families, of the stories that you hear from lots of members of Parliament, of catching journalists literally going through their bins, of harassing family members, as Farage had talked about, or frankly, that happens in many, many other cases as well. The way that politicians' family members have been debanked despite not being political figures themselves. Literally, their banks have said, I'm sorry, because your uncle or your dad or your husband or your wife is a member of Parliament, you're now politically toxic and compromised, and we don't want to offer you any of these services that are perfectly fine before we realise. This is a very common thing. And I've got to say, Jezza, I've spent all my life working in and around politics, either in the private sector or in government or whatever else, and I'm lucky enough to come across some quite impressive people alongside all the duds. And every time I do, I say, please, we need people like you in public life because the quality is so low. And almost every single time, what's the thing they say? I don't want to put my family through it. Yeah. I don't want, the fact that I maybe made hard deals in business that were perfectly legal but might be squeamish for The Guardian, or frankly, just I don't want my kids to get bullied in school the way that Farage has talked about his kids being bullied like
The reason it resonates with me is it wasn't political, but I had the biggest pylon of any television presenter for 6 months. I had press outside shouting things I wouldn't even repeat on this. I couldn't take my kids to school. My kids were bullied at school. I'm not decrying for 1 minute that obviously something in him snapped. I do think there should be standards. I'd hoped that things were better after 11. I just want to, I wish I had all day with you, but I just want to throw something at you because I genuinely don't know what you say, because I'm not, you know me, bud, we're friends, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but is it not interesting that all of this pylon, be it against Tice or Generic or Nigel Farage, in all of this that's happening, from the mainstream media, the BBC, all of that, no scrutiny whatsoever on the man who in 10 days, on the basis of 24,927 votes in Makerfield, is going to accede to the biggest and most important job in British politics. That frightens me a little bit.
Mate, I think it's by design, right? If you don't give them the scrutiny now, or even, and frankly, I think the other political parties who will have all kinds of good stories and bits of compromat and all the rest of it on Burnham, they're going to wait until he gets into office and then they're going to unleash all of it, because that causes maximum damage to his legitimacy, to his ability to govern, and so on. And I think that's why the political parties and others are waiting. The reason the press is waiting, of course, is because Burnham is a kind of new entity in his current form, because he's got different advisors than he did when he was in Westminster and so on. And a lot of those lobby guys need to get the access with him. So they've got to butter him up and say nice things now so that they can get the scoops and get the access. This is a feature, not a bug of the whole system. And one thing I would point out is I had a Twitter conversation with a man called Gabriel Pogrund, who is the Sunday Times investigations editor, and he's the one who's been pushing and leading on a lot of this. And I asked him, in a genuine question, I've known him a long time, why it is that, that some of the people around Farage are called criminals. And, you know, we had this conversation about how that is relevant as a public interest and relevant to the story and so on. But, of course, what is never used then is the fact that, for example, the Labour MP Louise Haigh, who was the Transport Secretary forced to resign because it turned out she was an actual fraudster, is now an integral part of Team Burnham.
Yeah.
But every time she's mentioned, she's not called convicted fraudster Louise Haigh, is she? She's called brilliant genius strategist Louise Haigh because they want to get in her good books to find the scoops. And that's how the system works.
I couldn't agree more. Are we carrying on here, Christian, or are we're carrying away? Jay, I thought we had to lose you. That's my point. That's my point, and it's very difficult to put it into terms without it sounding... Look, if Nigel Farage, if there's anything about that money that is wrong, that will come out. But as it says on the screen, it does worry me that this almost looks like a free run for Andy Burnham right now. And just one thing, I do have to go, but here's one thing. Nigel Farage last time got 21,225 votes in Clacton and is being told by the main parties he's using that as some sort of, you know, excuse that he's all right. Andy Burnham got 24,927 votes in Makerfield 3 weeks ago, and that's enough to become the Prime Minister of this country. That's a slight different thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would actually agree controversially with your Labour MP who was on before. Shocking thing for me to say. We are in a parliamentary system, and if Andy Burnham can command the majority of the House of Commons, then he gets to be Prime Minister. I think the hypocrisy comes from the fact that Rishi Sunak took over because he could command a majority in the House of Commons, and every Labour quizzling MP you see on the screen now was tweeting, we need a general election, we need a general election, and they don't like it when the shoe is on the other foot, because why? Socialists are all disgusting hypocrites who do nothing but destroy our country.
We love you so much, JP. You're always welcome. My love to Mrs. P. Thank you so much, Steve James Price. 8 minutes to 8. It's that time, ladies and gentlemen. It's a time for some royal... I was going to say rancour, or is it madness? Angela Levin, royal biographer. Very good morning, my darling.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, but I'm even by my standards, I don't know what is going to come out of this conversation, because Prince Harry has got to the point where he's so off the rails. While I think it was at the end of my birthday and the Farage thing took over, he lost his...
Happy birthday, I didn't know that. Many happy returns.
How old do you think I am, darling?
Very young, I don't know.
Stop. Levin, stop flirting with me. We're on air. What would Mr. Levin say? 61. He lost his court case, of course, against the Associated Newspaper, the Mail and the Sunday Mail. And I found it quite astonishing, the numbers of journalists that have come out from those newspapers saying, we did our job correctly and we have been utterly vilified. There's a story this morning in the Mail, which is, by anybody's standards, bizarre. Please do go and read it. This is from Charlotte Griffiths, the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, a lady who knew Harry and 20 years ago went for a weekend with lots of friends and him. And I mean, this is an astonishing story about how he put a white pill in her mouth that she didn't know what it was. They snuggled up watching a movie, and then he tried to sue her when he decided that the newspaper was no good. I mean, the story is unbelievable.
Well, he claims that she didn't know she was a journalist. That's what. So he thinks he'd played with her and made a terrible fact that he was not, did not know that. And I think that's ridiculous because he knew very well.
Something we know, don't we, that his extensive past drug use. He talked about in his 2023 memoir Spare, and he said he took Class A drugs like cocaine when he was a teenager, started around the age of 17. It wasn't very much fun, but I did it. I mean, it's just astonishing about this.
He did it for a trick.
Did he?
She took it out. She was on GB News this morning, and she said all this, that she knew it wasn't real and it didn't look like anything and it wasn't anything. And if she did eat it, which she didn't, it was just something to get your energy going. So he was doing this, she thinks, in a rather fun way. But I don't think that's a fun for a young journalist at all. I think it's
for a young woman to have a white pill put in her mouth by a member of the royal family. Whatever you think about anything, it sums this kid up. Listen, I've always been honest, and I've never said this perhaps as much as I can. He talked about how some of the drugs helped him deal with the trauma and the panic of losing his mother. And by the way, nobody would wish that on anybody, and it must have been utterly horrific. But it's almost as if his life is going steadily downhill, whether it's that story this morning or losing the High Court case. He was absolutely... I mean, I was reading about the court case. They had no witnesses. It fell on its backside. It's cost 50 million quid, and now he's decided to focus on his charity work. He must be the most badly advised human being in the world, Angela.
Well, you know who advises him, don't you?
Yeah, she indoors.
That's right. She's never satisfied. She screams at him, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's trying to be a good person. That's his good person. And he wants to look after people who are not well and tell them what to do. But actually, I don't think anybody wants to know what to do from him, because he's made such a mess of his life that you can't say to him, you know, please help people and make them feel better, because he can't do that.
It's almost like he's hell-bent on making the worst set of mistakes in terms of discussions. I mean, you know, the High Court case, in my mind, he was never going to win. His popularity here is in the toilet because he and his wife have played the royal family. And I just don't think he understands how much anger there is, Angela.
Well, what it is that he can't understand fact rather than what he feels like. Now, you know, he might feel bad about going into court or someone not letting him have what he wants because he is still royal, which is a nonsense. But actually, you know, for a court case, you have to say exactly what it is. You have to be able to prove it. And he doesn't think he has to, because he's a royal person. And nobody's sort of helping him out of that. But I wonder, all the people who help him with his problems, you know, need to deal with that. But I think they're quite scared of him.
Do you think that it's, just very quickly, I mean, he's lost that court case, she and he haven't been here, the security arguments. I don't think he's ever going to be able to come back here and be treated the same. I think he needs to wise up to that, and I think his wife is one of the major reasons for that.
Well, he's trying now, apparently, to actually get back to the king and, you know, apologise and make things all right. But the fact is, you know, he goes to see his father, takes all the information and then goes to the BBC and tells them all about it. You can't see the difference of that. It's him, so he can do it. It's not like anybody else. And I do know, because I was working there when all this happened on the Mail, and journalists were really scared, and but they were decent journalists who would never dream of doing the things that he said, and he hasn't taken any notice of that whatsoever. And I think he needs someone to help him, but he doesn't listen. He thinks Meghan is the one to tell him. He listens to her, and he does what she tells him.
Look where the hell it's got him. Angela, I could talk to you all day. I love you, and so grateful as ever for your take on the latest Prince Harry debacle. He lost that court case. There's stories in the Mail this morning about a white pill and movie snuggles with a journalist. Thank you so much indeed, my sweetheart. Almost 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Jeremy Kyle on Talk Breakfast. Coming up, Sarah Vine, author and columnist. She'll be brilliant on all that's happened with the Daily Mail. We're back after the news at 8 next.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
For over 20 years now, I have been subject to constant demonisation by the press. For daring to be outside the consensual view on many issues, I've been attacked again and again. And I am the most physically and verbally attacked public figure or politician of modern times. Yes, you will know of some of the incidents: milkshakes thrown in my face, placards bashed over my head. But let me promise you, you only know about a fraction of the number of times that I've been assaulted. It would seem from the last couple of years, from the way I've been treated, that the press would rather our members of Parliament had no assets and no wealth at all. They seem to fundamentally object to any MP that has outside income. Indeed, they view those that have continuing business interests with severe scepticism. Making money is not a crime. Let me be absolutely clear. After the furore and the media pile-on, well, not just the media, the other political parties too, let me be absolutely clear. I have done nothing wrong. I have not broken the law in any way at all. I have not misused public money. And you know, for the first 2 years of being an MP, my personal MP expenses are zero. I've thought about it hard, and I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which should happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election. It's a chance to stick two fingers up to the entire establishment, to frankly tell them where to go. And that is why I will be putting my name forward to stand in this by-election. I will fight to win. I will fight to continue the political revolution that reform has started. And I would say this to you, the voters of Clacton: if I win, you win. Because if I lose, they win. And we will never, with the two old parties, get the type of fundamental change that we need to fix.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, welcome back or welcome along. Just gone 8 o'clock on, what is it, Thursday the 9th of July. This is JK on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, and of course the home of you, the alarm clock Brit. Whether you've just finished the night shift, you're stuck in a traffic jam, you can't get in the bathroom because your kids are a nightmare, your house is covered with slime. That's what my house is, because apparently that's exciting. This is your show. Your views on the day's news, always welcome. Can I just be always straight? There's no point in lying. Sarah Vine, a great friend of mine, author and columnist, her plane last night was diverted to another country because of a problem, and now there's no Wi-Fi. So Sarah will be on at some point, either later today or another day. It's always important to do that, but when it gets dropped on you with 5 minutes to go, it's slightly difficult, but we'll make it work. What are you waking up to today? Well, you're waking up to the news that Nigel Farage will be fighting his Clacton constituency in a by-election he triggered with only one, it seems, opponent, which is Count Binface. The other major parties, the Tories, Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and indeed the Green Party, have said, we're not taking part in this farce. It's a complete farce. We're not taking part. That's the way it is. Nigel Farage has said that's a complete contempt for the electorate. What you're saying is there will be people in the Clacton constituency who don't support me. Who are they going to vote for? This was him. We're going to play it all to you. This was Nigel Farage yesterday speaking to Sky, which is quite ironic, in Clacton. Have a listen.
Number one, I have nothing to apologise for at all. I haven't broken the law in any way at all, and I'm firmly of the belief, backed up by strong legal opinion, that I have not broken Parliament's rules either. However, as a result of constantly being referred and complained about, it now would appear from the media pylon and from the political party pylon that I'm guilty of virtually everything. I'm being painted out to the people in this constituency, frankly, as being a crook. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think Sky News or anybody else should be my judge. I think the voters here in Clacton should have that opportunity. And as for the other parties, you know, the Conservatives got over 30,000 votes here in 2019. They don't want to stand. They know, well, you know why? Because they'd lose and lose badly.
Very interesting. The response from the other two main political parties, it's important we give balance, might make your hair stand on end. First up, Kemi Badenoch. This was her response to Farage yesterday.
Nigel Farage is having a hissy fit because the first time he's actually having to deal with some real scrutiny. What he needs to do is be honest about where his fishy £5 million came from, rather than calling a fake by-election to run away from a standards investigation. We will be standing a candidate in the real by-election because no one is above Parliament. Parliament is bigger than all of us. We all have to follow the same rules. We all have to register our interests. What this by-election is a gimmick. This is him wanting to make everything about himself rather than his offer to the country at a time when we have a defence crisis, a retiring Prime Minister, so much change and turbulence. Conservative Party is the only party that's actually focused on the issues that matter to people.
So the plan this hour is to dissect that. So let's start with the Badenoch speech. She's talking there. Just a couple of things I should pick up on. She says, I won't run a candidate so fast, that's her opinion, but I will run one in the real by-election, which has led to hundreds of people texting me this morning saying, so it's already a done deal then, Kemi, isn't it? Because you let the cat out the bag, because you're saying that means he will be found guilty by the Standards Committee and there will be a real one. So it is a stitch-up, so maybe he's right to do what he says. The other thing is, had several emails on this, the Standards Committee, we looked into this. It's like the police, I always complain, when they mark their own homework. The Standards Committee, peeps, is made up of 6 MPs. 4 are Labour, 1 is Tory and 1 is a Liberal Democrat. So you could say that Farage is at a difficult point straight away. The other thing is they've said it could be up to a year, right? Up to a year before they decide what the truth is. So for many on the right, they feel this is a stitch-up. But if you really want to take the biscuit, have a listen to what the Prime Minister said about Nigel Farage yesterday. Have a listen.
This is a desperate stunt from Nigel Farage, and it's obvious why he's doing it. He is up to his neck in sleaze. Politics should be about improving the lives of millions of people, not about personal gain, not about hiding dodgy donations. And I think the public will see this for exactly what it is.
I'm going to try and stay calm. Politics is about improving normal people's lives. Well, you haven't. You screwed the pensioners, you screwed the waspy women, you screwed the farming community, you've screwed businesses by increasing national insurance, you've done absolutely nothing about stopping the boats, you've done nothing about the police. You have the temerity to stand there and talk about improving people's lives. The man that took free suits and free glasses and whose judgment was that poor, he created the next, ready for this, the next UK ambassador to America, was the best friends of the world's most notorious paedophile. You think I'm angry? Have a listen to Angry Rob.
Morning, Jez. Morning, Mr. Tadchuk. Rob, on my way to work, listening about Burnham and his mandate, which he ain't got, never had, never will, because he's just a shoo-in. We're going to get another Marxist in the number 10 seat, ain't we? We're going to get somebody that's got to find 120-odd billion. And where's he going to find that from? Oh, let me guess. It won't be from all his set-at-home scratch card enthusiast Labour voters, will it? No. It'll be from people like me. Again. Up at 4:45 every morning, going to work. For what? So I can pay more to people who don't want to do anything to help this country. Not one of them in that parliament takes this country seriously anymore. It's a bloody game. Look at the by-election with Farage. They're not standing anybody in there. They say that it's all a show for Farage. Well, they're making it even worse by not even giving their people that they represent voice. They're just treating everybody with utter contempt. They're not taking the process seriously. I've had enough. All of them. They should be on a gallows. I tell you what, I'm a builder. I'd volunteer to build a bloody thing to swing them all off.
This is nice and balanced. You see, we get it all. And Count Binface, right, who's a comedian with a bin on his chops, he's the only person that's going to stand against Nigel Farage. This, apparently, is Count Binface.
They can choose to run away from my beneficence and magnificence, or maybe they just noticed that Nigel is up to a rather peculiar hissy fit, and they're keeping their powder dry for a second by-election when, of course, the parliamentary committee reports. But interesting, you see, the thing is, that second election, which would cost 380 grand, will only happen if Nigel wins this one. So if you vote Binface, you save the British taxpayer £380,000 without me doing anything.
Sorry, I know I'm going to... I just want to go, take it off, take it off, take it off. Sorry, he is going to stand against Nigel Farage, is he? Really? That's what we've come to, is it? That's what... The main parties won't stand against Farage because they think it's a setup. But he made the point. What if, right... Nigel Farage is found guilty and there'll be another one. This is ludicrous. Right. We decided an hour ago to speak to the Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice. We were going to have Sarah Vine. I want to replay this to you because people... It's rolling news, isn't it, when you do a breakfast show? Richard Tice, who this morning has had to read details about some bank transactions of his own, Robert Jenrick as well, talks very honestly here about the pylon and really how they all are dealing with this for the British people. Richard Tice.
What an extraordinary turn of events. So the choice is basically vote Nigel to bin the establishment. That's the bottom line, because the establishment have put their confidence in essentially in a bin. And it is quite extraordinary, as you've just been outlining, that you've got Kemi Badenoch essentially assuming guilt from the Standards Committee. You've got the Liberal Democrats saying the same. And then we hear yesterday that this Standards Commission report might take a year. And which is basically what they were trying to do, was to leave this hanging over Nigel and reform. And quite rightly, we've said, forget it. We're taking it to the people. It's the people that matter. And the good people of Clacton-on-Sea will have their opportunity to reinforce their support for Nigel, which I've no doubt whatsoever they will do. That is essentially, I mean, it is taking voters for fools, where Kemi Badenoch says, well, I'm not going to fight this by-election, but I'll fight one a bit later. I mean, it's just, it's extraordinary. The cowardice, the frit, the chicken-like behaviour of all the main parties is, yeah, it's completely patronising to the electorate.
It's quite interesting. Somebody rang earlier, Rich, and said, so if you don't support Nigel Farage and you don't support reform in Clacton, what are you supposed to do? The democratic process would always have been that everybody would, in most instances, run a candidate. I hadn't picked up on the Kemi. I'm going to play it, actually, for people who are just tuning in, Richard, because Kemi Badenoch, responding yesterday to Nigel Farage, had this to say. Have a watch, my friend.
Nigel Farage is having a hissy fit because the first time he's actually having to deal with some real scrutiny. What he needs to do is be honest about where his fishy £5 million came from, rather than calling a fake by-election to run away from a standards investigation. We will be standing a candidate in the real by-election because no one is above Parliament. Parliament is bigger than all of us. We all have to follow the same rules. We all have to register our interests. What this by-election is a gimmick. This is him wanting to make everything about himself rather than his offer to the country at a time when we have a defence crisis, a retiring Prime Minister, so much change and turbulence. Conservative Party is the only party that's actually focused on the issues that matter to people.
Richard, I'm always honest, and I hadn't picked up when I first saw that this morning, but many people picking up on what she said, you know, that the real election, does she know something? We've talked about the Privilege Committee. Fishy $5 million. Listen, I've said very honest, you know, I'm straight with you, you're straight with me. I don't know about any of that. What I know is, and actually the one thing I wanted to ask you, have you, I know what you probably will say and don't want to say, but have you been surprised in any way by the magnitude of the pylon? We've heard stories about Robert Jenrick. There was some stuff about you yesterday. I know you don't want to get into that, but have you been surprised by the weight of the pylon, Richard?
Look, we always knew that the establishment would come after us, but the way they are doing it is, and the coordination of doing it is quite extraordinary. And you've got the pylon against Nigel. You've got Kemi Badenoch there essentially denying traditional British rules, which are you're innocent until proven guilty. In her words, you're guilty until we say you might be innocent, and that's what the Lib Dems have done as well. Yeah, all of a sudden the pylon against Robert, the pylon against me, literally criminality taking place at the heart of our most senior crime agency, releasing bank statements and details of private bank conversations between me and my bank manager. I mean, this is all, you know, they are literally now quite happy to break the law in order to try and attack reform and senior people. And look, we're tough, we'll ride through it. because actually every day I get stopped on the street by people who say, please don't let them get you down, please keep battling on, you're the last hope to save the country. And that's why, despite all of the stuff, we're still leading in the national polls, and the real question, the real scrutiny should be put on the coup that is going on, where someone is going to rock up to number 10 on the basis of 25,000 votes.
And I agree with that. And listen,
there is no scrutiny whatsoever. We don't know what he stands for. We've got no idea about his positions on defence, on foreign affairs, on the economy, on immigration, on how he's going to stop the boats. Who is this bloke? Andy who?
Story won't go away. 8:20. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Jeremy Kyle on Talk Breakfast. Thanks for tuning in. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Gwyneth. Anne, good morning. You're on Talk Breakfast.
Good morning. Just listening to everybody, a thought. If the powers that be that can check Farage's bank account, will these people scrutinise Starmer's account from when he became Prime Minister to when he leaves his post?
Look, I have to say this. I've tried to say it correctly all morning, OK? There is no way that I would support or condone any MP from any political party that does anything that breaks the standards that MPs are set to follow. Fact. Keir Starmer, listen, is a... I mean, let's be honest. He was talking yesterday about legacy. Today, a group of MPs have found out that his decision, or agreed that his decision to bring in Mandelson was the biggest mistake any Prime Minister's ever made, followed by a review by the Department of Work and Pensions that he's in charge of that said that his disability benefit was unfit for purpose. I think Starmer has many questions to answer. I also think Kemi. I mean, I said this to you. I said this all morning. Kemi Badenoch said, I'll wait to run a candidate in the real by-election. So it's almost as if they all know that Farage is going to be found guilty. Now, can I just say it again? If Nigel Farage has done something wrong and he's found guilty, I'll be the first one. But it does seem, the timing to me, Anne, is astonishingly weird. Because as we are about to have a man who's just been elected by 25,000 people in Makerfield to the highest job in the land, nobody is scrutinising Burnham at all. They're all scrutinising reform, and that's a very interesting point, don't you think?
Yes.
Brilliant. Well done, Anne. Thank you very much indeed. 8:20. Jez, how can Keir Starmer make the final of the World Cup on the 19th of July bank holiday? It's a Sunday. The bloke's a muppet, says Mike in Devon. No, he's going to make it, I guess, maybe the next day or another day. Hey, Jez, a great show as always. If Binface was to win, would he be allowed to wear the bin in Parliament? It'll fit in well there with some of the complete rubbish. Nice. Roger's in Chichester. Morning, Rog. How dare that Labour MP know a lawyer and state that pensioners had a massive pay rise when Reeves, the thieves, proceeded to tax it, neutralising any bloody advantage. Great show, says Kevin East Kirby. Pithy. Those lefty apologists, they pithy me off the whole time. Very good. Morning, Jez. Well done for a brilliant interview with Noah Law, a somewhat ironic name for a Labour politician. The hypocrisy of that party makes me sick. I'm absolutely disgusted with the gutter politics currently being shown by the Tories on social media. Childish and pathetic. Angry Jan in Cambridgeshire. JK, what will happen if Binface removes the bin and turns out to be Mandelson? Yes, that's fantastic. Morning, Ken.
Morning, Jezza. Ken here. 4:20 a.m. alarm clock. Brits. Who do these people think they are? Kemi Badenoch talks about Farage having a hissy fit while she goes and has one of her own. And as for no one being above Parliament, I'll tell you who's above Parliament, Mrs. Badenoch. We are. The people are above Parliament because we can get rid of you anytime we choose or at an election. My God, the brass neck and arrogance of these people make me bloody sick. Cheers, Jez.
Cheers, fine. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Let's cross now to Westminster to speak to the Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Helen Whately, a very good morning. How are you, Helen?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
As it is your job, let's start with this astonishing story this morning. A major review for the Department of Work and Pensions has said that the disability benefit system is unfit for purpose and discourages work, which is what we've all been saying for months and months, and yet Starmer presumably has no idea about this when he runs around the place saying, what will my legacy be?
Well, this is an absurd situation that they've been in power for 2 years, and we've just had the report coming out of this review, which all it does is set out problems with the welfare system. There are absolutely no answers, no solutions, and no plans to make any savings. Yes, we all know the welfare system is broken. We know it's not working. We know that we need to bring down the welfare bill. But as far as we can see from this report, what this report is actually saying is when they say it's broken, what they mean is it should be easier to get benefits and the system should be more generous. That is simply the wrong answer.
Do you think, Helen, that there is more of a need for a debate that says that a system, a welfare system that, I mean, I and millions of people would support paying into, because I think the very concept of wanting to help those who can't help themselves is fantastic. But is there not a time upon us where we should all say that the system is being played, that this isn't an attack on the genuine people who want correctly and rightly to get support, but there are people taking advantage of the detriment? We have a Labour Party about to get a new Prime Minister who will go nowhere near a welfare bill that now outstrips what we get in tax to the Exchequer from people who work, which is in itself an astonishingly bad thing to admit. And yet there's this fear, certainly amongst the Labour backbenchers, to even do anything about that. But we have to accept, do we not, that a system that was set up in good grace is being ripped to shreds by people taking advantage.
Well, completely. And on this, Labour MPs are completely out of touch. They're not getting it. They don't understand. Yes, of course, we want a welfare system that supports people who are seriously disabled, people with terminal illnesses, people who really need help. But we all know that the system is being abused at the moment. The benefits are going to people who could and should be working. There are so many stories of that. People using the internet, using AI, using social media to just get the right answers and get benefits. And I'm not just talking about, you know, those stories. I also talk to people who are working inside the system, whistleblowers, who are saying they're seeing so many people coming forward with a combination of its low mood, its anxiety, its ADHD. And I'm not dismissing, for instance, the challenges that people may have in their lives with struggling with depression or ADHD, but we cannot have that as coming forwards for benefits and not working.
No, but and I've always felt there seems to be a problem, whatever the political party, in having that discussion, because it sort of goes against the grain and people jump up and down. But I always want to make the point that the system's to help those who can't help themselves, and we're all happy to do that, but we need to face up to it. Obviously, the main story that seems to be doing the rounds is about Farage and Clacton. I just wanted to ask you about Kemi Badenoch, and I've been very honest about Kemi Badenoch in the last few weeks and months. I think she's really stepped up to the plate, and I think she's done a great job at Prime Minister's Question Time. I thought she made a bit of a mistake yesterday. She attacked Farage, her right. She says it's a fishy 5 million, and she said we will not be putting a candidate up in this farce of a by-election. We will wait to put a candidate up for the real by-election. But Helen Whately, you must understand that hundreds, thousands of people have picked up on the fact that she's prejudging the Privileges Committee's outcome, because she said, put it out there that there will be another one, which means that presumably people have already assumed that Nigel Farage is guilty before he's been proven so.
Look, of course, we'll see the outcome when we get it of the Privileges Committee investigation. But, you know, Kemi's renowned for being straight-talking, and she has called this out for what it is, which is a stunt by Nigel Farage. And he is quite obviously dodging questions on that 5 million donation or gift, as he calls it, refusing to take questions when he did a press announcement the other day, just making a speech and then walking off. He used to make a big show that he would always answer everybody's questions. Now he's not doing that. And actually, you know, we're living in serious times. Today, again, we've got the news of bombing again in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, a tanker being bombed there. You know, we've got serious stuff going on. We need the country, we need the government, we need the politicians to be focusing on what we do about these serious questions, not being distracted by an unnecessary by-election in Clacton when, as you say, we might get another one in the autumn.
But you will understand that people this morning have picked up, I'm always straight with you, and said, that sounds to us like the establishment has already judged. Listen, I said it all morning, Helen. If Farage has stuff that has to be proven and he's made mistakes, then he absolutely is going to have to answer to that. But, you know, let me try another tack with you. And this is actually for your party, for any other party. It is quite ironic, is it not, that certainly those on the Labour benches today said, so Farage, this face thing, he thinks that you can go to Clacton and get 20,000+ votes and that means that your approach is right. And yet, Helen Whately, on Monday week, a man that got 24,927 votes in Makerfield has not been scrutinised by anybody, and I know Kemi has said this, has not answered any sort of question about anything to do with how he's going to run this country. He's going to accede to the most important job in the land, Andy Burnham. That's frightening as well, isn't it?
Well, the thing that I find most concerning is we're going to see Andy Burnham a Prime Minister in a matter of days, and what's clear is that he has no plan for the country. So we've already had a fiasco of the government for the last 2 years, no idea what they're doing, making endless mistakes, making things worse in the country, wrecking the economy, putting up taxes, obviously in my area of welfare, completely failing to make any savings with no clue what they're doing. And then we're going to have Andy Burnham turning up, again, without any plan, and taking the country in what looks like an even worse direction. This is a very serious situation to be in a country where, you know, we so badly need a strong sense of direction. We so badly need leadership will take a grip on the problems that we face. We so badly need leadership which recognises that businesses are the key to our economic growth and our prosperity as a country, and that's willing to make savings from the welfare state and invest in defence. We need all of these things, and Labour appears to be completely unable to do any of that.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, we've had the discussion repeatedly. You're always good enough to come on. You know, the Tories became, in many people's minds, toxic. You, Kemi, and your colleagues have tried to move the party on, and certainly she started to resonate with voters and callers and listeners to this show. But it's quite frightening, isn't it, to think that Keir Starmer won a 180+ seat majority with no plan whatsoever. In fact, the person that was employed by him, Sue Gray, for the first 100 days, had gone by the first 100 days, day 93, I think. And we could be in the same, because we do not know at all what Andy... Well, I know, because I'm old, much older than you. He'll tax everybody, because that's what socialists do. They use other people's money. That's an absolute fact. And we'll end up with high interest rates, and we'll be on our knees to the IMF, and the country will be screwed for another 3 years. I mean, I do think all of this points to one thing, whether it's Nigel Farage's being accused of stuff, or whether it's, you know, the wrong way in my mind that somebody can become Prime Minister. We need a general election, don't we? Surely.
Well, actually, so my view is, first of all, we have to get serious about the problems facing this country, and we have to talk about them, and we've got to confront the difficult choices that we need to make. As I said, in my area, in welfare, we've got to talk about the fact that, though, of course, as you were saying earlier, yes, of course we care about people who are seriously disabled and want there to be help for them, but we have got to make difficult choices and bring this bill down. We cannot afford it. We have got to work out ways to invest in defence. We have got to work out ways to cut taxes. That's the only way that we'll get growth. We've got unemployment going up, more people who are not able to get work, not able to get an income, more likely therefore to go on to benefits. We have to turn that round. We need there to be more jobs, more opportunities. Economic growth is fundamentally what we need as a country, but we will not get that without hard choices being made about public spending. We have got to be straight about that and have a serious conversation as a country. That's what needs to happen, so that then the public get a proper choice at the general election, absolutely straight about the choices that need to be made, the trade-offs that need to be made, so that then we can fix our country and make it a better place to live.
Is it frustrating? I mean, I said this to Mel Stride the other day. I've said it to everybody because I'm interested. I was very critical of Kemi Badenoch not speaking for months and months. But it became apparent to me that when she did, a lot of thought and a lot of work had gone in, and a lot of cost-effectiveness had gone into the policies and the procedures that you were advocating. Is it frustrating, Helen, with the work that you're all putting in, just being straight with you, that Kemi Badenoch is, at this moment, I think, the most popular politician in the United Kingdom, and yet the polls haven't moved for the Tories? Is it? How long do you think that toxicity that we talked about, that we're all very honest about last time, how long do you think it will be before the public go, yeah, we're listening to Kemi Badenoch, and in fact we're listening to the Conservative Party, and we think they have a real chance at forming a new government?
Look, I mean, you want straight answers. I can't tell you how long, but I can tell you that I understand completely the anger that people feel at us, the anger that they expressed at the last general election, the anger that they've expressed in local elections, saying that we made mistakes, we got things wrong, and we have to absolutely take that on the chin, reflect and make sure we come forward with real proper plans and proposals which fix the problems of this country, take on the questions about immigration, take on the questions about public spending and how we would save money. But we did see in Scotland in that by-election in Aberdeen, actually when we were very clear with the electorate about something they really cared about, which was the oil and gas sector there and backing the economy in their area. And we were the party were saying what we would do about that and how we would back that sector and how
I don't think that got enough publicity.
And there we saw a huge result for the Conservatives.
I don't believe that got enough publicity with everything that's been going on, because the Tory party, I think, got 50% of the vote in Aberdeen South and won a seat, which is pretty unheard of, north of the border, in emphatic terms. And as you said, talked about one of the craziest things that this country goes through at the moment, which is this, we've got this wonderful asset under the North Sea and nobody wants to drill for fear of upsetting I don't know who. So yeah, that was very true. It seems to a lot of people that contact this show, whether it's the Farage stuff or whether it's Keir Starmer failing so spectacularly, that politics is in need of, well, two things really. Seriousness, yes, as you said, but also surely the lesson to any politician is you need to listen to the electorate. I say every day, Helen, but I do think the silent majority have woken up in this country. I really do.
I mean, of course we need to listen. I mean, it's one of the things about being an MP in our system is that we all go back to our constituencies, or most of us do anyway, and over the next couple of days, will be back knocking on doors, speaking to people in my constituency, and they will tell me straight how they see it. So we are hearing all the time, and you've got to take that on board and make sure that you are understanding, for instance, how angry and frustrated people feel, how worried people are about the future. I mean, I talk a lot to people about the situation with youth unemployment. We've got 1 million young people who are not in education, employment and training. I talk to some of them, I talk to their parents, I talk to their grandparents saying, we're really worried about our kids. How are they going to get jobs? I mean, this is already a worry, and I think we're only going to see this grow in the months and years ahead as the situation gets worse with unemployment under Labour. People are really worried about this. We have to talk about the economy. We have to talk about defence because of the global threats we face, and we have to talk about the economy.
Brilliant. I never thought, Helen Whately, I'd be asking you this final question, and it is a final question, but it's been sent in by about 100 people. If Count Binface happens to win the Clacton-on-Sea by-election, do you and the Tory party think he should be allowed to wear the spacesuit and the bin on his head while sitting in Parliament?
I was wondering where you were going to go with this question, as you said. No, I don't think he will be able to wear a bin on his head in Parliament. You have to wear certain dress in Parliament to show respect to the electorate who have entrusted you to do that job. And that includes, for instance, wearing a jacket like I'm wearing today. So no bins on heads in Parliament.
Great to have you on. Thank you. We're always grateful to the Tory party. They put somebody up every morning. CCHQ. Helen Whately, Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, on the day that a report said that the disability benefit system within the DWP is an absolute disgrace. 1 week, I think, 10 days until Starmer finishes. And people are saying to me, what is Starmer's legacy? I'll tell you his legacy. 5, 4. Do you remember that with the fireworks? Even that was a damp squib. See what I did there? Morning, Steve.
Morning, Jezza. Steve from Bassenor. On my way to work again. So let me just get this right. We've got essentially an election happen, a by-election happen. It's been set up for one man to win. Everyone's calling it a farce, and no one really takes the legitimacy of it. However, the impact of it could be huge. Clearly, I'm not talking about Nigel Farage here. I'm talking about Andy Burnham. So the Labour Party saying that Nigel is running a farcical election just to prove, or just to run away from the Standards Committee or the Privilege Committee, when actually what they've done is have a man in Josh Simmons stand down to allow Andy Burnham to run, for him to have a clear pathway to the Prime Ministership. We've had the Prime Minister resign, in which he would say that he would also run as a candidate, and now he's not going to, which also allows, by the sounds of it, which also allows Andy Burnham a straight through path to becoming Prime Minister. I don't quite get where Labour or the rest of the Uniparty get off here. Absolutely crazy. Cheers.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side.
Welcome back, my friends. 21 minutes to 9 o'clock. JK on Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, of course, and of the alarm clock Brit. 0344 499 1000. Loads if you're trying to get on. Also, thank you so much indeed for all the text messages. Jess, if Mr Binface gets into Parliament with his bin, one thing's for sure, under a Labour government, it will never be emptied. Brilliant, very good. Suze, I'm absolutely beyond disgusted with Starmer, Reeves, and for the first time, Badenoch. The Farage pylon is making this country look like it's run by childish idiots. I'd go further and say the whole thing's embarrassing for the entire country, to be honest. I take what Helen Whately says. Look how we must look on the international stage. Chris is in Stockport. Why is it a joke if Farage stands on his own in Clacton, yet it's OK for Burnham to stand on his own for PM in a leadership contest, and it's absolutely no joke there? Can someone ask these Muppet politicians? What a fantastic text that is. Whatever your political persuasion, whether you're pro-Farage or pro-Starmer or pro-Badenoch, yeah, so this is a farce election. Does that not make the prime ministerial election, which closes nominations today, as a farce? Keep saying it. Just shy of 25,000 people voted in Makerfield democratically to elect Andy Burnham. On the basis of that, he's going to be the next Prime Minister. Wow, that's really good. Well done, Christopher Drinkle. What a great name that is. Drinkle. Christopher Drinkle in Stockport. What rhymes with Drinkle? Winkle. Don't start. Farage doesn't need to be an MP to lead reform, and reform doesn't need him to be an MP to win the next election. If I was him, I'd just sit and wait. Interesting. Simon. Jez, what is Kemi talking about when she says that Farage needs to be honest about where the fishy 5 million came from? We know where it came from. Christopher Harborne. That's not the issue. The issue is it should have been declared, says Nicola in Norfolk. Andrew in Thatcham. Starmer will be remembered as the greatest Prime Minister the UK has seen. In his own head. When in reality he's the worst in living memory, and remembering Blair, that's quite an accolade. Tash is in Bexhill. Nice place. Good golf course there. Noah Law, this was the Labour MP who was good enough to come in last hour, said people will perceive a stitch-up. No, it really is precisely that, a stitch-up. The two-party system doesn't want you to have any alternative. Thank you, Stephen in London. Sorry, Tash. It's been a wild week. Someone's lost their dignity, someone else has lost their bin, and the nation's lost the plot. Thank goodness talk makes us smile. I'm not sure we're supposed to make you smile. I get criticised for... Some people say to me, you can be sometimes flippant. Yes! Because it's so goddamn depressing doing this job, and it's so goddamn depressing reading the news every single day in a sort of straight voice. Otherwise I go mad. Sorry, Jez, I'd say it. Carol's in Essex. Morning, Jez. I'm politically homeless. I was impressed with Kemi and I was going to become a member of the Conservative Party. After the last few days watching the attack on Farage, I've changed my mind. Frankly, I'm disgusted with a lot of them. Now, that is something that all politicians of all persuasions have to begin to understand, because that, by many, is seen as the truth. Good morning to Michael in Henley. Morning, Jez. I hope Nigel sues people like Davey who have defamed him by saying he's up to his neck in sleaze. Don't know. Chris, when are people going to wake up and see what Labour is doing? This party hate our country and they hate the people who don't vote for them. They are punishing us and intend to leave a huge mess when they eventually get kicked out. The more we rail against their leadership, the more cantankerous they become. Chris Dully, great name. Just remember this, right? Whether this was Labour or indeed the Tories as well, 4.7 million people. 4.7 million people were only allowed to vote in the last local elections because of something Reform tried to do. You could say that's undemocratic. There's all sorts of criticism you could field at anybody. Zarina, bless you. I've got to go to work now, but can I just say a big hi and thank you to you and your wonderful team for getting us fired up in the mornings. Just saying it as it is. Kev, good morning. McGarrigiggle. What is this? Is this the half an hour of funny surnames? Do you know what they used to call me at school? Kyle Pile Hemorrhoid. Thought I'd drop that in. Honestly, I think we've moved past the banana republic phase and we're heading straight into dictatorship territory. Think about it. They've basically engineered a vacancy in Makerfield to bypass a real public scrutiny just so they can install Burnham as the next man up. When the party machine can just swap out leaders like this without a general election, the voters are basically irrelevant. It's starting to look like a managed state where the result is decided before we, says Kevin Marlborough, even get to the polls. This is good. Graham in Sussex. Surely there could be a third vote in Clacton if we get a general election in 6 months' time. Maybe Clacton will become the most famous constituency in the land for having... Mastermind question. What constituency once had 47 general by-elections in 12 months? Clacton. Finally, morning, Jez. How did the dads race go? I would say better than this government and opposition. Yeah, sports day yesterday. Mid-div is all I'm saying. A couple of men fell behind me. One guy in spikes was in the distance as I stumbled towards the winning line. 0344 499 1000. Let's say a very good morning. And keen to do this, actually. So John Curtis is the polling expert. I wanted to see what the furore of the last couple of days has done for the opinion polls across the UK. So, John, good morning.
Good morning to you, Jeremy.
Well, there's the question, my friend. What has happened? The furore over the Farage resignation, Starmer on the way out today, nobody standing up for Burnham, no scrutiny. He's going to sweep into Downing Street. What's your take on all of this, Sir John?
Well, I think the first thing we have to say, Jeremy, is that it takes a little while for polls to catch up with the news cycle, and as yet we have very little in the way of polling post the story about Mr Cottrell and his support for Nigel Farage last Sunday, or indeed Mr Farage's decision to stand down on Monday. But we do, of course, have the fact that there have been stories about Mr Farage and his association with Mr Harbour and that £5 million. That's been going for some time. Yeah. So against the backdrop of that, number one, while we do have a little bit of polling about the decision of Mr Farage to stand down, YouGov put some questions up on their daily poll, which they're then able to try and make look reasonably representative. That suggests that, you know, we divide along party lines. Reform supporters tend to support the idea. Those who support the other parties tend to be opposed, though I think it's fair to say that the level of support amongst Reform supporters is somewhat more divided than is the opposition of those who support other parties. So maybe Mr Farage has not necessarily managed to support anybody. So far as the broader picture is concerned, well, where are Reform today? Now, on average, in the polls that have been conducted since Keir Starmer's resignation, they're at 26%. Now, they've been running up between 26 and 28% basically since March, since the Harborne story first broke. So it's not clear so far that any of this has had any significant impact on Reform standing, although Reform standing is lower than it was in the autumn of last year. So far as Mr Farage's personal ratings are concerned, well, I've been through the various ratings of the various companies. For the most part, his net rating, which is in negative territory, but that's true of all of our politicians because they're all leading minority parties. But his net rating doesn't seem to have changed a great deal, except for one company, Ipsos, which does have this net satisfaction rating much lower. But amongst those people who supported reform last year, that still leaves him at plus 80. And I think you have to remember that Mr. Farage is a bit of a Marmite politician.
Yep.
Many of those people who support other parties really don't like him, but he is still very popular amongst those who do. So I think so far one has to say that so far as the broader political picture is concerned, the Farage-Farrago it's not really had much impact. So far as the resignation of Keir Starmer is concerned, well, that's not really producing much in the way of a benefit for Labour. We had 2 polls yesterday putting them third. If you take the average of the most recent poll of those pollsters who have polled since Starmer's resignation, Labour are now at 21. That is up 1 point on where they were immediately before Keir Starmer's resignation. So it's a reminder, Jeremy, all these media stories, all these dramatic political developments, they don't necessarily change the political weather.
It's interesting. I mean, we talked about a Burnham bounce. Obviously, he has been sort of parachuted in. We've talked today on the show about does he have a mandate, 25,000 people to make a field. But that's the system. That's the system. There's a correlation, isn't there, between Andy Burnham justifying getting into number 10 on the basis of 25,000 people in Manchester voting for him, and Farage believing that if 20-something thousand people vote for him in Clacton like they did last time, that tells the media and everybody else that the people are with him against the establishment. There's a correlation there. The Burnham bounce, do we expect that to materialise, or is there I mean, one thing I'm picking up is a general cynicism, an increasing cynicism about politics in general. That seems to be ebbing its way back.
Oh, right, sure. Well, that's been with us for quite some time. And indeed, I mean, one of the we've got all these rules designed to try and ensure that politics is transparent, that MPs are honest, that parties get their funding from the right sources. But what these rules do is that they end up creating tripwires for politicians potentially to fall over. And the truth is that when politicians do fall over these, either knowingly or unknowingly, it does get a great deal of media attention. And I've had to be honest, I've long since formed the rule that the more we tighten up our politics, this doesn't necessarily contribute to greater confidence in politicians, because it creates these stories about ways in which politicians are seemingly in some way or another on the make, or getting secret sources of funding, etc., etc. And on the Burnham bounce, well, I think the answer is we now wait to see what happens when he becomes Labour leader on July the 17th, as now seems inevitable, and Prime Minister on the 20th. I think all we can say so far is that the mere fact of Starmer going and Burnham becoming the Prime Minister presumptive has not had that much impact. I wouldn't be surprised if in the short run, when voters actually see more of Mr. Burnham, who is certainly a more effective communicator than Keir Starmer, that in the short run it might be an advantage. But the hypothetical polling that we had, a few weeks ago of how would you vote if Mr. Burnham were to become Labour leader, suggested, yes, something of a boost for Labour, may be able to catch up reform, but again, not creating the kind of boost that some of the people are suggesting, well, this could potentially provide a platform for Mr. Burnham want to call an early election. It would need to be much, much more than that before we were contemplating that possibility.
And just Kemi and the Conservatives, it's fair to say, I think, John, you'd back this up, that Kemi Badenoch's sort of personal rating has increased dramatically. Yeah. It's increased substantially over the last year or so. Her performance at Prime Minister's Question Time seems to beginning to resonate, but the party hasn't moved, and that must be a source of frustration.
Yeah, they're running on average at 20%, maybe up very slightly from where they were a couple of months ago, but sure. The truth is, at the end of the day, having a personally popular leader is potentially a benefit, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee electoral success. At the end of the day, the problem the Conservatives still have is that voters still have relatively fresh in their mind the record of the party in government between 2019 and 2024, Partygate, the Liz Truss fiscal event, etc., etc., the Boris wave. All of that is very, very difficult for the party to live down. And they're still constantly having to say, when they say, well, we're now a serious party, right? Helen Waitley on now recently trying to explain how they are trying to be more serious. But the question you can always follow up is, hang on, but what did you do when you were in government? And that will take a while for them to deal with.
Final question. Never thought I'd be asking you this, Sir John Curtis, the greatest pollster ever. Could Count Binface, unbelievable, who looks like the only candidate that will oppose Nigel Farage in Clacton on
Let's bin this story straight away, Jeremy.
Hey! Can he? Do you expect to see a voter surge from opposing parties?
No. We already have indications of 6 people, including John Harvey, who is Count Binface, that either definitely or might stand in this by-election. They include Lawrence Fox, who is a former London mayoral candidate, the leader of the Reclaim Party, which will be very much looking to eat into Reform's territory. It also potentially includes Rejoin EU, who are regular participants in by-elections. The pitch is in the name. It will be interesting if they do find a candidate, because of course Nigel Farage is, one of the chief architects of Brexit, and in the absence of Labour and Liberal Democrat and Green candidates, they might spot an opportunity if they can find a credible candidate. But I think John Harvey's done a brilliant piece of self-promotion. The fact that he's standing has helped to add to the story that, is Nigel Farage being rather foolish in doing this. But actually, we may well end up with, obviously no major party opponents, but actually at least some candidates who do, to some degree, represent alternative points of views that the voters of Clacton may wish to hear.
Brilliant. Sir John Curtis, really good to have you on. He is the legend, ladies and gentlemen, Professor of Politics at the University of Strathclyde and polling expert. Always great to have you on Talk Breakfast. 7 minutes to 9 o'clock. In the next hour, Dan Hodges from the Daily Mail. Be really interesting to see his take. Great piece in this morning about the current political situation. Also, we'll do some sport before the news at 9. Back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Breakfast on Talk. Good morning, Paul.
It's not really funny though, is it, mate? Because now this is ridiculous. This is UK politics. We've got Russians going mad. We've got Israel, we've got Iran fighting with Americans. We've got all this stuff around us. We've got a country falling to its knees. We've got all these things happening, and you want to sit there laughing. It's not a laugh. This is serious. What is funny about this? This is UK politics, isn't it? Where people like Count Binface are really what this is. I can't get my head around it. We've got Andy Burnham being our Prime Minister with no mandate whatsoever. Now you all want to sit and laugh about a guy with a bin on his head. Who cares? Why are you giving him air? It's like you want him to win. And do you know, Russians, Iranians, any sleeper cells, they're looking at Britain and thinking, you know what, if we're going to take a country, we're going to take it now. Because just look at the absolute muppets we're running it. Just look at what they're doing. They've got a guy in UK politics with a bin in his head. You know what, mate? We deserve to be invaded. We don't deserve to have our own country, do we? This is not funny. It's not a comedy candidate. It's got to stop.
Absolutely. 0344 499. I have to laugh occasionally because if I didn't laugh, I'd bloody well cry. Josh Hall, push the button, please, Big M.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Josh, a very good morning. It's all countdown. I heard something very brilliant yesterday. We're all making plans for Wednesday next week, having taken it as a certainty that England are going to win against Norway on Saturday night.
Yeah, it might be a little bit early to start making plans for the Wednesday. There's certainly a big game in the way before that happens.
How do you see it going? I mean, people are now suddenly saying it's coming home. They're getting enthusiastic. They're starting to believe.
Look, I think when you look at England's team on paper, they're definitely a better team man for man across the pitch than Norway. But the talent that Norway have got in someone like Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard is going to make that match very, very difficult. And they're on a great run, and they've really got their country behind them as well.
Now, listen, The Sun always does a fantastic job every single brilliant day. And I just want to talk about the main news story that nobody... This kid, ranked 5 million in the world, Arthur Ferry, has come from absolutely nowhere and is in the semi-finals of the Wimbledon Championships. It's unbelievable, pal.
Yeah, it's genuinely an incredible story. Came in at 114th in the world rankings, got a wild card to be there. What's really interesting about it is we lost 10 Brits on the first day.
Yeah.
Also, Raducanu, Jack Draper both dropped out before, so there was no real hope for Britain in this year's Wimbledon. And all of a sudden, up steps Arthur, and he's been incredible. What a win over Flavio Cobolli, and he could be Zverev in that semi-final.
It's unbelievable. Everything you need. You know, it's always short. Stuff about Guimaraes could be going to Arsenal from Newcastle. Everything you need in Sun Sport. Always the best on the back of the newspaper. Thank you, Josh, so much indeed. Almost 9 o'clock. We have Dan Hodges next on Talk Breakfast.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Jeremy Kyle on Talk Breakfast. Thank you for tuning in. Julia is here from 10, Ian from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan with Drive Time on the Home of Common Sense today. What are you waking up to? Well, this big story about Farage and Clacton. I'm resigning my seat. I'm going to stand. Then the Uni parties say, we're not doing it. He says that's undemocratic. Everybody else jumps in and has an opinion. Where did it all start? Yesterday, Sky News interviewed Nigel Farage whilst he was out and about in Clacton, where he is fighting an election campaign where he could potentially just be facing a man called Count Binface. This was Nigel Farage yesterday.
Number one, I have nothing to apologise for at all. I haven't broken the law in any way at all, and I'm firmly of the belief, backed up by strong legal opinion, that I have not broken Parliament's rules either. However, as a result of constantly being referred and complained about, it now would appear from the media pylon and from the political party pylon that I'm guilty of virtually everything. I'm being painted out to the people in this constituency, frankly, as being a crook. Well, I tell you what, I don't think Sky News or anybody else should be my judge. I think the voters here in Clacton should have that opportunity. And as for the other parties, you know, the Conservatives got over 30,000 votes here in 2019. They don't want to stand. They know, well, you know why? Because they'd lose and lose badly.
Kemi Badenoch responded to Farage yesterday. This is what she had to say. Have a listen.
Nigel Farage is having a hissy fit because the first time he's actually having to deal with some real scrutiny. What he needs to do is be honest about where his fishy £5 million came from, rather than calling a fake by-election to run away from a standards investigation. We will be standing a candidate in the real by-election because no one is above Parliament. Parliament is bigger than all of us. We all have to follow the same rules. We all have to register our interests. What this by-election is a gimmick. This is him wanting to make everything about himself rather than his offer to the country at a time when we have a defence crisis, a retiring Prime Minister, so much change and turbulence. Conservative Party is the only party that's actually focused on the issues that matter to people.
We'll be talking to Dan Hodges in a tick, talking to him about Farage and Kemi Badenoch. Just want to make the point, loads of people have responded this morning, hundreds. A lot saying if he's done anything wrong, he's got to face the consequences. Others saying it's establishment stitch up. But many of you picking up something that I missed, which is that Kemi Badenoch said, I will stand a candidate in the real by-election. Many people texting me and calling me and going, so she's presuming already that he's guilty because the Privileges Committee is made up of 6 people, 1 Tory, 1 Liberal and 4 Labour Party. So why would she be saying that? But whatever your thoughts on this, this show is about balance. And as we very soon are entering a by-election, then it is only fair, right and proper that the only other person who at this moment is standing against Farage, Count Binface, has his say. Morning, Binny.
They can choose to run away from my beneficence and magnificence, or maybe they just noticed that Nigel is up to a rather peculiar hissy fit, and they're keeping their powder dry for a second by-election when, of course, the parliamentary committee reports. But interesting, you see, the thing is, that second election, which would cost 380 grand, will only happen if Nigel wins this one. So if you vote Binface, you save the British taxpayer £380,000 without me doing anything.
Welcome to CBBC. No, I'm joking. Welcome to Talk. Just a voice note quickly. Wayne, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. So, Parliament, gaslighting us again, mate. One rule for them, one rule for us. They expect us to go through society accepting people who identify as cats, and they expect us to accept that a man can be a woman and a woman can have a penis, right? They want us to follow by them rules. Then I'm sorry, but if Binface wins, he gets to keep his bin because he identifies as a bin. I agree he should wear a suit, smarten up a little bit, but if he identifies as a bin, who are they to say that he's not a bin? You know, it can't be both. It's got to be both ways, my man. Do you know what? I'm going to move to Clacton, register to vote for Binface, just so he gets in Parliament, and then we can all have a massive campaign that Binface gets to where he's been. Outrageous, mate. One rule for them,
one rule for us.
Been today, gone tomorrow. 7 minutes past 9. Brilliant. Nice balance. I love this next man. He's been at the forefront of so much to do with this show. We thank him enormously. Dan Hodges from the Mail. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
Great piece today from you, but I just want to throw a couple of questions. Please read his piece on page 7. Farage is learning that when voters are shouting at you, it's bad. When they're laughing at you, it's over. Tried to put all sides this morning. Let's start with your view of an election, a by-election that he says Farage is deadly serious. The Uni Party have all refused to put candidates up, saying it's a farce. His response is that they are showing contempt for the electorate. And also that slip by Badenoch when she said, we'll put up a candidate in the real by-election, which lots of reformers have jumped on board and said, what, so it's a stitch-up job and it's already sorted, Dan?
No, it's not a stitch-up. Kemi Badenoch is simply reflecting what Nigel Farage has been saying himself. Nigel Farage has said he believes he's going to be found guilty, which is why he's called the by-election in the first place. If he didn't think he was going to be found guilty, we wouldn't be going through this farce, and we wouldn't have to, you know, I wouldn't have to spend the next month writing about Nigel Farage versus a man dressed as a bin. I mean, the reality of all this is, Kemi Badenoch said it herself, and I think she's right. There is no reason why the other parties need to dance to Nigel Farage's tune. Everybody knows what Nigel Farage is doing. He is trying to evade legitimate scrutiny over the £5 million he was given by a Thai crypto billionaire and didn't declare. Other financial gifts in kind that he got from one of his best mates, Posh George Cottrell, who is a convicted fraudster, and the fact, which he also didn't declare, and the fact that he hasn't declared several homes as part of his extensive property portfolio. Now, the point is, whatever you think about Nigel Farage, you may like him, you may hate him, he has to abide by the same rules as every other MP.
Absolutely.
And he has to accept the same scrutiny as all other MPs. Now, I've been on this show talking about how Boris Johnson, your predecessor's show, talking about how Boris Johnson ate a piece of cake. I've been on this show talking about how Keir Starmer accepted and was gifted a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage was gifted £5 million, and he thinks he can just swan around and has literally said to the British people, none of your business where this money came from or what I do with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much I want to ask you, and always with you, because you're so switched on, I want to try and make it as balanced as possible. I'll make the point that I've made all day. If he's done something wrong, then undoubtedly he is going to have to stand by that. But I want to try and dig a little bit deeper. Today we heard there was some stuff in The Guardian about Richard Tice and his bank accounts. He came on earlier and said they can only have got that one way, and that's by a leak. There's accusations that Robert Jenrick used some money for his Conservative campaign when he was running for leadership. Do you believe, not irrespective of whether Farage is right or wrong, there is an establishment pile-on against reform because they are terrified that this party is still, after however long, leading in the opinion polls? Or, / really important, do you understand a lot of people who will vote reform think the timing of this is extraordinary because we have had absolutely no scrutiny on a man who in 10 days, on the basis of 25,000 people in Makerfield, is going to accede to the biggest job in British politics?
Well, to believe that, I mean, the first answer is no. I don't think there's an establishment pile-on.
Yeah.
You know, my newspaper, the Daily Mail on Sunday, is scrutinising these issues. Other newspapers, such as the Telegraph, the Times, you know, we're not part of some left-wing establishment and some left-wing plot to get Andy Burnham into Downing Street. You know,
do you think he should face more scrutiny, though, just on a personal level before...
Andy Burnham?
Yeah, before he goes...
Obviously, Andy Burnham's going to rightly face huge scrutiny. When he becomes Prime Minister, he's obviously only been an MP for what is it, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
When he becomes Prime Minister, he's going to face massive scrutiny, much more scrutiny than Nigel Farage will face. as Prime Minister, and rightly so. But all politicians face senior politicians.
Now, I guess my question, Dan, is do you think he should... I'm not deflecting at all. Do you think he should... Because people have been asking me to ask you on it. Do you think he should face scrutiny before he accedes to the highest job in the land? Because look where it got us.
He should, but obviously the issue with Andy Burnham is Andy Burnham hasn't set out a policy programme apart from obviously his policies about the Manchester of the North, which has been extensively scrutinised, and I've certainly extensively scrutinised. The reality is he hasn't said or done anything yet. So at the moment, there's not really a lot to scrutinise. I mean, we've talked about obviously Andy Burnham's record as Mayor of Manchester, which is interesting, but is not really a massive indication of what he's going to do as Prime Minister.
Absolutely.
So, and we can have this, for the next, what is it? He's going to be Prime Minister in 12 days?
Yeah, something like that.
We can spend the entire programme having a debate about scrutinising Andy Burnham, but in 12 days' time, that scrutiny is going to begin in earnest. So I'm not entirely sure, we're going to get anywhere with that, because he's obviously not going to reveal huge details about either his team or his programme until he enters Downing Street.
Let's take it back to, and there's a picture of Binface, and your headline, I mean, Count Binface, it's hysterical. But I got told off for saying it was hysterical by a listener. Farage is learning that when voters are shouting at you, it's bad. When they're laughing at you, it's over. In your mind, when he made that speech on Tuesday, I think it was, it was Tuesday because it was my birthday, was that a rare political mistake by Nigel Farage? Does that signal a weakness or show a weakness that we've never seen before, or is it genius?
But no, it's certainly, as I said, he's going to spend the next 5 or 6 weeks arguing with the man with a bin on his head and trying to claim, that the bin is part of an establishment stitch-up. I mean, he's going to become a laughingstock, which is why I'm actually amazed the by-election's taking place. I thought once the other parties had pulled out, Nigel Farage would recognise what a catastrophe this is going to be for him.
Yeah,
I think we have to separate. It is a massive political blunder. People within Reform privately are acknowledging it's a massive political blunder. There's huge amounts of infighting going on within Reform about how they got themselves in this mess. It is amazing to see, if you like, how far Nigel Farage has fallen. Someone who just had, I think, for two things, had this amazing ability to, judge the mood and have his finger on the pulse of the British people. But also, as I've talked about before, he was a politician up until this point who had a force field around him. So normal issues that would basically destroy normal politicians, he would deflect them with a joke or a shrug or, just a witty comment, and stuff would bounce off. And as I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, that force field is now down. And we've been seeing Nigel Farage and Reform making a succession of mistakes for a good few months now. I mean, obviously, we were talking about it. I mean, you saw that, the car crash candidate they selected in the Makerfield by-election, for example. Similarly, the candidate they selected in Gorton and Denton. I wrote in February. You would talk. We've been talking about this guy Posh George. I wrote back in February, this guy Posh George is convicted fraudster, wrote a book, How to Be a Money Launderer, how to launder money. Had a big champagne reception for the launch in central London in the middle of the Gorton by-election, last week of the Gorton by-election. Nigel Farage, turned up to the event. And I wrote at the time, "What, you want to be Prime Minister? What the hell are you doing hanging around with the convicted fraudster who's publishing books about how to launder money?" And I said at the time, this is going to come back and bite Nigel Farage. And so it's proved.
Do you think the bubble, not just the approach, do you think the Reform bubble bursts with this? Do you think it's sustainable with this? Does Farage come back from this? I mean, I have to say this to you because I'm trying to do it in the right way. If he gets 25,000 votes in Clacton, that surely justifies his stance as much as it is that Burnham got 25 grand in Makerfield and is going to become Prime Minister.
But this is the thing I don't understand about what he's trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Say he does get 20,000.
Yeah.
What happens if Count Binface gets 10,000?
Yeah.
You know, what's a win for Nigel Farage in this? This is the thing. I don't see what
Just
the win
heard that, I don't know if it's true, Lawrence Fox might be standing. John
Yeah,
Curtis said it might be more than...
I've seen that, although he's been tweeting some weird stuff, kind of like supporting Nigel Farage, but saying he's going to run. Anyway, I don't know what Lawrence is up to. But to answer your question, no, I you know, and again, I've written this. I do think this is the beginning of the end for Nigel Farage. There's been discussions about his future, about how he looks tired. You and I have just been talking about how he's lost his political touch, and those are discussions that are taking place inside Reform as well as outside. What I would say is, and this is where I'm completely different, I know, to everybody else. I don't buy this narrative that if Nigel Farage goes, that's it for Reform. Obviously, Reform would take a hit.
Yeah.
But as I said yesterday, to quite significant ridicule, it has to be said, there are a number of sensible, serious, quite savvy political players and characters within Reform. I do think Reform occupies a space on the British political spectrum that is not occupied by other parties.
Yeah.
I think they do have a very valuable role in differing ways in keeping both the Tory party and the Labour Party
in check.
In check, however you want to call it. And this idea that, if Nigel Farage goes away, well, that's it for Reform. That's not something I'm buying into, because to assume that, you then have to assume that the discontent with the with the big establishment parties will magically go away if Nigel goes away.
Yeah.
I don't see that. But I think
there are millions of people. I think you're quite right. I think there are millions of people in this country who have been encouraged to move towards a philosophy that they perhaps, or a directness they perhaps haven't heard before from either of the other two parties. And I think you're right, there's a space there. The thing that we mustn't do, I'm not, again, balanced, no, somebody wants to tell me, don't ever underestimate Nigel Farage. I think that's quite an important point.
Yeah, but, cats have 9 lives, but they don't have 10 lives. Nigel has been, incredible, as I say, at rehabilitating himself, at defying the political odds. But the point is, what we're seeing here is not, this crisis has been precipitated.
Yeah.
Because Nigel Farage and people in Reform have known for months, and I've been writing about this for months, their poll trajectory has been heading in one direction, and
certainly since last March, it's been coming down from highs of 32 down to 26. You're right there.
His personal approval ratings have been getting much worse. We're now seeing, very organised, active, and sustained tactical voting against, which is seen as anti-Reform tactical voting, but is actually anti-Farage tactical voting, because he is this Marmite figure. And I think the fundamental, when we come back and write the history books, there was a moment about a year ago when Reform really broke through. And there was a point a year ago when I thought Reform had a serious opportunity to be a party of government, and he had a serious opportunity to be Prime Minister. But then they had to go up to the next level, and they then had to start reaching out to the significant part of the electorate that hadn't, for that point, bought into the Nigel Farage magic. And they failed to do that. And what we're seeing consistently, and we're seeing this in the by-election, this is a pitch to Nigel Farage's base. Establishment plots, they're all out to get us, MI5's in staff.
It's Trump-esque, isn't it?
It's Trump-esque. It's the Trump strategy. Yeah. And the point is, Britain is not America, and fortunately, actually, Nigel Farage isn't Donald Trump. He has his issues, but he's not our Trump in that sense. So I think, just that strategy is not going to work. And as I say, I think we are coming to the end now, and I think deep down Nigel Farage knows it. This is his last throw at the dice.
It's really interesting. I do love, genuinely, Christian and I were both just saying, I love your take on these things. You're very clever. I want to just before you go, one of the things that we all agree with is a free press. at some point in my existence, I was hounded by the press, and that happens, and you take it and you move on. The victory that Associated Newspapers had the other day against Prince Harry, and some of the stories from journalists that work on the Mail, really hard-hitting, just incredible stories about how they felt they were being stitched. Fair play for free speech, right?
Absolutely. I mean, complete vindication of all, you know, a lot of these are a lot of these people I work with. You know, obviously, you know, journalism, like politics, is a rough game, and we accept that.
Yeah.
But a lot of brilliant journalists who did brilliant journalism, did their jobs diligently in the public interest, were dragged through the mud by a group of people who basically just didn't want the public to know some of the dodgy stuff they were getting up to, and they wanted to be free to carry on just acting the way they wanted to, and they were absolutely nailed to the floor by the court. And it's a complete and utter vindication, as I say, of all those people who work for the Mail, who were completely and utterly vindicated, and the complete repudiation of those people who want to try and shut down a free press. But make no mistake, the people who want to shut down a free press haven't gone away.
No.
They're going to come back. You know, they always come back. They're going to lick their wounds. They're going to go and come back. And that's why it does kind of tie. It's why I said, you know, I was very disappointed, and I have been disappointed to see Nigel Farage doing that, oh, poor me, and oh, the journalists are hounding me sort of thing. No, we're not, mate. No, we're not. You know, we're just trying to get legitimate answers to legitimate questions. And there will always be people who don't want those questions asked, and they don't want them answered. And as you say, they had an absolutely resounding defeat in the courts this week.
I remember when I was going through it, Dan, about 7 years ago, I remember one of my mates ringing me up and going, I guess it comes with the territory, kidder. If you can't take the scrutiny, give up the big salary and everything and go back to a 9 to 5. And I remember thinking that when I looked out the window and there were journalists on the gate and I couldn't take my kids to school. It's part of it. And if you are in public life in whatever guise, scrutiny, and maybe you'll be surprised by my finish, having been scrutinised ridiculously. If you've got anything to hide, then it'll probably be found out. That's all, you know. And at the end of the day, you know, we have to have a free press. Yes, of course, Levinson, and absolutely, you would admit this, there were practices in years gone past that weren't edifying. But I think at the end of the day, certainly, not just politicians, but certainly with people who are going to run our country, want to run our country, want to offer what they believe to the British people, then we need to scrutinise. Mate, it's great to have you on. Always a pleasure. Thanks. And really, really appreciate it. Read his article today in the Mail. He says, Dan Hodges, Farage is learning that when voters are shouting at you, it's bad. When they're laughing at you, it's over. 9:25. Morning, Charlie.
Morning, Jezza. It's Charlie on his knees at work, knocking his pipe out, helping to pay that 40 billion welfare bill. Just thinking about the kangaroo court that's going to be up against Nigel Farage. We're everybody knows what's going to happen. The same thing happened to Boris Johnson, love him or loathe him. I forget the name of the politician that was in charge, the Labour lady. With that, all the press judging him, putting their 2 pennies worth in, whether it's Sky News or the BBC. Everybody knows what's happening. We're getting closer, even more closer to being like the Russians than ever before. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. Over and out, everybody. Have a good day.
And I've decided today I will resign as a Member of Parliament for Clacton-on-Sea, thereby forcing a by-election, which would happen, I hope, in short order. No, I've decided that the people of Clacton should be the judges of my actions. This will be a people versus the establishment by-election.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:28. So as I said, Julia is here from 10 o'clock, Ian Collins from 1, and Kev O'Sullivan on Drive from 4 o'clock this afternoon. Jez, I think the Tory mask has slipped. All this chat about how Kemi has changed the party is a load of guff. She's shown her true colours in piling in against Farage when innocent until proven guilty has been thrown out of the window. Never trust a Tory, says John in Wapping. Rich is in Maidstone. Good morning, Rich. He says, so all the establishment leaders and cronies who were found out doing something bad can just say it was a mistake and get away with it. If Farage is found guilty, frankly, I think he will be, can't he say it was a mistake and move on? Andrew, what about Kemi showing respect to the electorate by putting up a candidate? Just goes to show her hypocrisy. John in Poole. Good morning, John. Starmer's legacy. Jesse, you asked what Starmer's legacy will be. My answer is how to turn a country into a third world land near communist states, says John in Poole. Brian Goodwin. Morning, Jez. Regarding Andy Burnout, when it all goes wrong with his policies, we should all blame the 25,000 fools from Makerfield who voted for him. Well, it's a democratic process. That's the way it is. 9:30. Let's say a very good morning to Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning.
Good morning. Jazzy, you've mentioned your birthday again today. When are you going to get over it?
When? When did I mention my birthday? What are you talking about?
You mentioned how old you are. I mean, honestly, have you got a complex or what?
Well, no, actually, I'm all right today. I feel, although I had one of those mornings when, you know, I do feel 61 because it was the parents, it was the dad's race yesterday at Sports Day.
Did you win?
Of course I didn't win. There are 25-year-olds in racing spikes with calves bigger than my thighs, but I was sort of mid-div. But my daughter Alice, fantastic, just graduating. Actually, tomorrow we're going to Edinburgh. She ran in the mums race and won by the length of the field, having stopped halfway down to pull up her skirt. Brilliant. She's a fast runner. She was fantastic. Brilliant. So there was a bit of pride for the Kyle name, but no, the old man was... She said to me, you really are crap, aren't you? Which is great. Really? Isabel Oakeshott, we know... we know that you're marrying Richard Tice. We had Richard on earlier, which was great. Dan Hodges just on there saying, and I think it's really important that we get all sides, it's over for Nigel Farage. He's shown weakness. It wasn't the greatest political move to do this, and he said he has been quite surprised and looks at Nigel Farage and thinks that he perhaps knows the sands of time have caught up with him. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm so glad that I'm coming on directly after Dan, because I listened to his whole conversation with you, and I think Dan is a brilliant commentator. I love reading his pieces, and he's very well informed on many things. But I think, I mean, no disrespect whatsoever, in the same way that at this point I would not characterise myself as a Labour Party expert. I don't think that Dan Hodges is a Reform Party expert. And some of the things he said just aren't true. They're not accurate. So I'm not taking issue with his overall, his overall commentary. You know, he's entitled to say that he thinks that, you know, the steam has gone out of Nigel Farage. I happen to disagree with that. But where he says, for example, that there's a lot of infighting in Reform within the party, within the party leadership, I mean, that just isn't true. Nigel is the leader. Nobody is saying that he's going to go. You know, within the party, it's actually very united. I don't think anyone is happy that all this mud is being slung around. And clearly, we'd rather be spending our time talking about reforms policies, particularly on the perhaps the most pressing issue of the day, which is the scale of illegal immigration, rather than continually talking about £5 million donations or gifts. But the truth is that there isn't infighting in reform at the moment. As I say, you know, people are frustrated, but it's not infighting as might be characterised at the top of the Labour Party or within the Tory party when things get difficult for them. He also said that he thinks that calling the by-election was a mistake and that lots of people within Reform also think it's a mistake. That's also untrue. Nigel Farage did this for very clear reasons. You know, this investigation by the Standards Commissioner, which I heard last night, the suggestion that the Standards Commissioner might take up to a year.
Yeah, I said that.
I mean, that is just ridiculous. There is one question here, or rather there was before yet another thing was referred by Nigel Farage's enemies. There's one question: should he or should he not have registered the £5 million gift? How could it take a year?
Well, I will say, and I'm very consistent on this, and people who listen to this show will tell me the truth, will accept this. I have long railed against the police. I'm not changing subject, it's relevant. Who, you know, the Police Complaints Commission is made up of policemen who mark their own homework, which is why many standards in police have dropped and people have gone unmarked. I think it is utterly ludicrous that the Privileges Committee is made up of 6 MPs, 4 of whom are from Labour, 1 is from the Tories and 1 is from the Liberal Democrats. Now, I've had it all said to me all morning, Reform only have 5. Surely it is better to have an independent inquiry away from the House of Commons where people's political persuasions might lead them to make a decision. And that's not me sticking up for Farage, because anybody that goes in front of the that committee, presumably, if that person who's sitting there, are they going to be judgmental? Are they going to be bipartisan? I don't know. But my only thing about that is when I found out the makeup of that, I think it should be independent. Listen to this. You'll love this. Wendy says, I think maybe there's more to come, but Parliament needs to understand their hold over us is finished. Too many of us are utterly peed off with the whole thing. I do think there is a point in all of this. Dan might have points, you've got points. I do think that the British people, the silent majority... Dan, look, tell Dan he needs to read the room. Politics has changed. The silent majority have woken up. Dan is out of touch. That's from Bill Warren. I do think that... This isn't pro or anti anybody. I do think that we're all a bit fed up of, I'm squeaky clean, oh no, I'm this, I'm that. Just sort the bloody country out, please. We're on our backsides, and I think that's an overriding concern, Isabel.
I mean, I probably don't need to spell this out for people, but I think it is worth repeating that if the Standards Commissioner was going to take up to a year, or even frankly 3 or 4 months to come up with a conclusion on this, let's just pause and think to ourselves why that would be and how that plays into the hands of Nigel Farage's critics and of everybody who wants to stop reform. It allows month after month after month after month of people speculating and continually haranguing him about the same issue. And his critics know that, and it suits them very well to string this out for as long as possible. So whether or not he did anything wrong, that's not for me to say. We can see that he very much believes that he didn't. Why can't we just get an answer on that sooner rather than later? And because he knows that there won't be an answer on that sooner rather than later, he's decided to take it to the people. And Dan asked a perfectly reasonable question. He was saying, well, what if Binface gets 10,000 votes? You know, what's a win for Nigel Farage? A win is a win in our political system. It's a first past the post system. So
now,
it doesn't matter if some Muppets want to vote for a bin, which frankly represents the whole of the establishment who don't have the guts to fight against Nigel. It doesn't matter. As long as Nigel is returned, we know then that the majority of people in Clacton who vote want him to continue being their MP. In that case, this strategy will have reinforced his mandate to continue doing what he does.
It's really interesting because I didn't pick up on this. You would have done because you're a brilliant journalist. But somebody at about 20 to 7 picked up on this. Badenoch, of course, spoke yesterday and said, you know, he's having a hissy fit. It's all about him. That's her opinion. But she also said, I will not be running a candidate in this farce of an election, by-election. I will be running one when the real by-election takes place. And so many people, Isabel, jumped straight on that and went, so there you have it. Kemi Badenoch, siding with the left, has already decided, or perhaps knows, that Nigel Farage will be found guilty by that Ethics and Standards Committee because she's talking about a second by-election. Lots of people have jumped on that. Whatever the view of anybody on all of this, there's no doubt, you know, I find myself agreeing with Helen Whately from the Tory party earlier, who said there's major things going on in the world. There's massive problems in this country, and we're being a bit hamstrung by people playing politics, aren't we?
I mean, I take issue with the idea that this is a hissy fit. It could hardly be more serious.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage still leads the party that is leading in the polls and has been for months and months and months. In other words, he is still the favourite to be the next Prime Minister after this Labour lot. And there is a concerted campaign to bring him down. That's what this is. It is coming from all sides. The onslaught is quite extraordinary. It is utterly relentless. So, you know, sorry, Kemi, this isn't about hissy fits. It is about the future of our country and whether it is legitimate for agencies of the state, institutions of the state, and goodness knows who else to all be relentlessly piling on to try to block something that millions of people want for our country, which is a whole different direction of politics. There's nothing hissy fit about that. That is about standing up for democracy. It's about standing up for the right of British voters to have a choice that goes beyond Labour and the Tories that seem to think that they've got an eternal right to pass the baton back and forth between them, and a cosy, complacent establishment that will stop at nothing to protect the status quo that has served them, but not ordinary British people, so well for all these decades.
For balance, what happens? What does Reform do if he loses? Is that the end of Reform?
Of course it isn't the end of Reform. I know that Labour and the Tories wish it to be so. But this party is so much more than one man. You know, Nigel's phenomenal, and we all hope that he'll stay exactly where he is and be vindicated and all those things. But this is a movement now, not some kind of cult of personality. And by the way, if he loses, he can still be leader of Reform. Under Reform's constitution, you don't have to be an MP to lead the party.
Very interesting. And finally, Count Binface. I mean, I had a Tory, no, I didn't, I had a Labour MP, Noah Law, on earlier, who was saying that he sort of intimated, would other parties throw their strength behind Count Binface? How can you do that if you don't want to be involved? And doesn't it actually make a farce of the whole thing? That's what a lot of people are saying to me this morning. Is it just a really bad look? Or is it on the other parties for not standing up? Or is it a direct... Do you think, by the way, Nigel Farage knew that the other parties would do what they were going to do, Isabel?
No, I'm certain that he didn't, because it's all very unpredictable. I mean, the reason they're doing it, let's be clear, is because they've been caught on the hop. Idiotically, they didn't see this coming, so they hadn't got some kind of little stitch up ready to go. But I don't think it matters that much. You know, Nigel Farage's critics, Reform's critics, are now desperate to characterise this as some kind of farce. It's a disaster. It's none of those things. Who is leading all the headlines at the moment? It's Nigel Farage. He seized the momentum again. He seized the initiative. Let's take it to the people of his constituency and see what they have to say about it. And if everyone else wants to muck around talking about bins, well, that's on them. At this point, Reform is trying to position itself to give people a choice at the next election between the same old tired two.
Great to have you on, sweet. Thank you so much. Always good. Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott on Talk Breakfast. Carl Turner, independent MP for Hull East, who said he will go back into the Labour Party when Andy Burnham becomes the Prime Minister next week. He's next on Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:45, still to come. Kinsey Schofield ahead of 10 o'clock, Julia at 10. Let's say a very good morning to the independent MP for Hull East, Carl Turner. Good morning.
Good morning, Jezza.
How are you, son?
I'm good, actually. Going well, I think. We've got the nominations opening in the Labour leadership. I'll not be nominating because the Chief Whip decided that I had to be suspended, but he's not been able to tell me why I'm suspended still. It's all a bit concerning.
But you did admit the other day that if Andy Burnham succeeds, and Al Khan's yesterday saying I'm not standing, so he will be unopposed and should be the Labour leader within a week and Prime Minister within about 10 days. You will rejoin the Labour Party, right?
Well, indeed, he'll have me back. I'll be welcomed back into the fold, and I can hardly contain the excitement, Jezza.
Andy Burnham, just hear me out. Lots of stuff about Farage and, you know, this Clacton by-election, and if 25,000 people voted for him, how is that a vindication of this approach, bar? Lots of people this morning, you know, prepared to give Burnham the benefit of the doubt or not. 24,927 people in Makerfield, Carl Turner, have voted, quite rightly and democratically, for Andy Burnham. Is that really enough to justify him acceding to the most biggest and most important political job in the country?
Well, it's not a mandate from the general electorate, is it? It's a mandate from the people of Makerfield, which gets him into Parliament, and the Constitution, the rules say that we are a parliamentary democracy. If he becomes leader of the Labour Party, which has the most MPs in Parliament, it becomes the Prime Minister. That's the way the system works. If people don't like it, we can change it. But it's the current system. If Farage is elected in the by-election, which is decided to trigger, and eventually goes to the country and the people want him to be the Prime Minister, they'll vote for him.
What's your view on the Clacton by-election? He says it's deadly serious. The main parties have said we're not standing. Badenoch, I thought, but I didn't, somebody told me, she let slip yesterday that she'll run a candidate in the real by-election, which has got many people here contacting us and saying it's going to be a stitch-up, this standards committee, 4 Labour, 1 Tory, 1 Liberal Democrat, he's going to be done. What is your take on the Farage thing? Is it, because, I mean, if 25,000 people voted for him in Clacton, that's the same mandate as Andy Burnham, and he's becoming the Prime Minister, man.
Well, look, what I'd say about this is I listened to Isabella's interview with you a few minutes ago, and I've got some sympathy with what she says. Why do I say that? Well, because I think it's unreasonable, frankly, that these Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards inquiries take so long. Why is it going to take potentially 12 months to decide the issue as to whether Nigel Farage ought to have registered a donation or a gift to him of £5 million from this crypto billionaire within the 12 months of becoming an MP? I think I could resolve that question within about 15 minutes.
It's probably why you're not in government and got thrown out of the party, because you got far too much common sense, Carl Turner.
Well, I don't get it. Jeremy,
No.
I've been up before the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, not this one, but his predecessor. The question about me was, I tabled a parliamentary question, a written question, not oral in the chamber of the House of Commons, but a written question, and I forgot to tick a box, or my staffer had, to mention that my wife was a criminal solicitor at the time. I apologised immediately for getting to tick the box, but it took them 10 months to decide whether I was guilty or innocent.
Wow.
It was crackers. And in the meantime, I had people texting, people tweeting, people Facebooking, and all the rest of it, accusing me this, that, and the other, without me having the ability to defend myself. Why? Because the rules of Parliament say you cannot comment once you're under an inquiry.
Do you
So
have
Farage-
do you have some sympathy for Nigel Farage?
I do indeed, because Farage... Listen, I'm not a fan of Nigel Farage. I don't like his politics. If there was a general election in tomorrow, Nigel Farage would put a candidate in Eastall and I'd lose my job. I'm not going to like him very much on that basis, Jezza, to be honest with you. But where does the sympathy for Nigel Farage come from me? Well, it's simple. He's not allowed to answer for the entirety of the inquiry from the Commissioner for Standards. If he does, he'll be in contempt of Parliament. So he's going to have all this hanging over his head until the inquiry completes. Now, that's a problem, I think. Do I think he was right to trigger a by-election? No, I don't really, because it's become a farce.
Yeah.
People are potentially going to be electing a bloke who might be a funny character, he's a comedian as I understand it, for a living, but we might be having a scenario whereby we've got a bloke with a bin on his head walking round the Palace of Westminster, the mother of all parliaments, and there's a geezer sat there in the corner with a bin on his bleeding head. It's ridiculous, Jeremy.
Lots of people tweeting, going, with the rubbish that's in Parliament, he'd be well suited. But no, I get your point. And I've said it all day. Whatever the rights and wrongs, whatever the truth, whatever they find out, I don't like the idea of... I don't like... I said about the police, Carl. I don't think people should mark their own homework. I think it should be an independent inquiry, and I think that's a massive, massive thing. As to what happens, I don't know. You're right about the Labour Party today. It's the opening of that whole leadership nominations. It looks like Burnham is going to accede to that job. You will be back in... when you're back in the Burnham Labour Party, will you still come on the show or not? Or are they going to be telling you can't?
Absolutely, Jeremy. I've spoke with Andy Burnham. I've said I don't want any particular job. I'm not interested in trying to feather my own nest. I've never really been bothered about that stuff. If I'd have been... I was the Shadow Solicitor General in opposition. If Starmer had given me that job, I'd have been very pleased about it. It was the job I wanted to do. But listen, I'm not kissing backsides and begging and pleading for jobs. I couldn't give a monkey's, to be honest with you. I'm happy to be a backbench MP. I'll do my best for the constituents. And I tell you what, at the point where they decide to boot me out of the constituency, I'll shake hands with a man or woman who's replacing me and offer to help them the best I can. That's democracy. When the punters don't want you anymore, you've got to take that on the chin and walk away.
You're a legend, Carl Turner. You're always welcome on the show. Thank you, my friend. Brilliant, brilliant to have you on. 9 minutes to 10. Wafting into Studio One with the grace of a Hollywood superstar. Good morning, Kinsey Schofield.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
I'm quite worried because you're going to interview me in a minute.
I am. You should be shaking in your boots.
I'm shaking in my boots,
socks.
baby. I don't wear pop socks. Welcome to the show. Sorry, I know this is probably the timing isn't great because we're going to shift from talking about the politics we've been talking about to Harry. I can't. So there's this astonishing story on the front of the Daily Mail today, Charlotte Griffiths, who actually knows a couple of the people that work on this show. And she talks about a weekend stay some years ago when Harry was 20 and single and you know, polo and...
Fun
and cuddles during movies. But his idea of a prank was to put a white pill in her mouth within 10 seconds of meeting her.
Here, let me tell you, that is one of the big takeaways, was that he didn't trust her. So he tried to pop a pill in her mouth and say, there, now I can trust you. And she discreetly takes it out.
What was it, a Tic Tac or what?
My grandpa loves Tic Tacs. I don't think it was a Tic Tac. I think it was Mr. Funtime Harry. He did say that he had to be very careful about what drugs he used because he was randomly drug tested in the Army. But here was my biggest takeaway from that article. She admits that the Sussexes pulled her aside last year to tell her that their advisors are meeting with King Charles's advisors. So Charlotte then sets up a photographer to be outside to catch the meeting between Tobin, King Charles's advisor, and Harry and Meghan's new advisors, Liam and Meredith Maines. And remember those pictures that went everywhere? And she says, I was told about that by Harry and Meghan's team. I set up the photographer. I ran that story. Then Harry and Meghan went and briefed the Telegraph and said that they were angry that somebody at the palace must have leaked that story. And her reason for telling us this is she's saying, there's Harry on the stand saying that no leaks from my team. We just don't do that. My friends don't leak. No leaks from my team. And she's like,
we know they do.
Well, but now we have proof in the Daily Mail with Charlotte Griffiths telling us step by step how they used her, and then he turned around and took her to court. And this is her opportunity for redemption. But she does say, I'm 42 years old now, I'm married, I have children, I'm not a party girl. She doesn't appreciate the way that on the stand they tried to tear into her morals and values. And she said, she said, Lady Colin Campbell called me a drunkard. I'm not. I was a young girl, I was having fun. And she also says, like, I protected him for the most part, until legally I was required to hand over all this evidence that suggested we did have more of a relationship than he let on.
I know we keep coming back to it. Earlier this week, he lost his court case, £50 million, along with some other people. I think Elton John, David Furnish, a couple of other people. Again, we sit here and we go, I mean, he called it a travesty of justice. He said it was a whitewash.
Racist.
How do you think this boy will ever
grow up?
Yeah, recapture reality in his head? Because I just don't think even my 2-year-old makes as many strategically obvious mistakes as he and her. I'm being completely honest.
I know you are.
Doesn't seem to get anything right at all, Kins. Nothing.
Well, I think that we've said it 1,000 times, but your advisors are poor, and we saw that this week with he's staying at Buckingham Palace. No, he's not. My source.
Where is he saying? Oh, we're not allowed to say.
My source is saying that was a setup. That whole tsunami of headlines was a setup to try to make the king look bad, to try to, bully him.
Why would you want a relationship with a man that you are patently behind the scenes trying to make look bad? If your dad is ill with cancer and you want to see him, do it quiet. What is his problem?
The king has got to put his foot down and say, I can't trust you. No. When you
think he will?
No, I think he has to. I think he will, because this week Harry has continued to prove that he is a liability to the future of the monarchy. Yeah. He is undisciplined, he's unpredictable, and in my opinion, he's dishonest. And that is not somebody you want around an institution that is so important to. I mean, culturally, I think it's incredibly important to the United Kingdom.
And also at a point where, and we've said it. You think of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, you think of the stuff that's changed within the context of the royal family, and never has there been a bigger time for transparency or them seeing to do the right thing.
Strip them of their titles too.
I don't understand why two people who believe that everything to do with the monarchy is racist are even using their titles or coming to want to stay in Buckingham Palace. There's such a dichotomy of it's madness.
Yeah, if I were King Charles, I would strip them of their titles, but unfortunately we're constantly talking about the bleeding heart, and I'm sure he's a very sweet man, and I know he's King Charles, and I know he's ill, but it's okay in this scenario. You will win more fans if you.
Yeah, but I suppose, right, and I'm not just saying this, being in the same position, it's his boy, it's his blood. He probably still thinks that the mother hasn't been around and probably blames himself and all that, but the truth is, you're right, anybody with a brain cell will go, listen, Charlie boy, he's taken the what's it and has been for years. They want what they can get from from just using an institution they purport to hate. I don't care if you hate it, just bugger off and do it quietly.
Yeah, I hope that you bring this energy to my interview.
What are we, now can you just, what am I going to, what are we...
We're going to be talking about this. We're talking about this.
I like the outfit.
Thank you. It's from The Nanny, the TV show with Fran Drescher.
When you said nanny, then I started.
Oh, that's right. You married the nanny.
Sorry, I what?
You married the nanny.
Yes, but you see, that sounds very Jude Law, doesn't it? I
love that about you.
I did marry my ex-nanny. Oh, and there's my daughter. Have you met Alice? That's the 20...
Oh, my gosh. Can I give her a hug?
That's the 23-year-old. We're off to Edinburgh because she is graduating. She's graduated with an honours degree from I'm not allowed to say Edinburgh. Don't tell the whole country that Alice got an amazing degree at Edinburgh University, and tomorrow's the graduation. And I've been warned that several things I can't talk about. Don't talk about politics, don't talk about anything like that. Just basically keep your mouth shut, Dad.
Well, she's a good-looking girl. She must have your genes.
Of course she is. I'm her dad. What did you say, Christian? No, don't ruin her job prospects. Kinsey Schofield, we'll love you. Stand by. Julia Hartley-Brewer is on 0344 499 1000. We'll see you Monday morning for breakfast at 6. Have a great weekend. Julia Hartley-Brewer is next on Talk.
The thing that